Hello, everybody. My name is Lewis Lee, and this is Plan and Traffic. And as you know, we do this every Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time live. And we are live on YouTube, Facebook. So please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're wondering why I got this crazy hat on, my beautiful Dalmatian decided to eat it one night because we started letting him, he's still a puppy. Well, he's a year and a half. So we started leaving him out of the cage at night. And for one night, he decided to eat my favorite hat from Hot Rod Innovations, one of our sponsors. So if you're listening, Dave, I need a new hat. Look at this joker. Look what he did. So we got Carl Anthony on the show tonight. What's up, Carl?
Hey, Lewis. Good to be here. Good to be back. I know we've been trying to do this for like a month now, and it just seems like we can't line our schedules up. And so when you texted me a few hours ago, I was like, I'm in. I'm game. It's good to be back on the show, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. Every time you come on, we learn a lot, and we really appreciate you. I know that the industry is real busy right now, and the summer's coming, so family stuff happens. So yeah, we've been really busy here too.
Yeah. Well, I think the last time we had talked over text, you were talking about the Ford F-150 Lightning. I think you did a show on it, even about either the delays in the ordering or the fact that ordering had been canceled. So it's just, I know there's a lot of stuff taking place right now around semiconductor shortages and electrification and all of that stuff. Right. So there's just a lot going on, and it's a lot to digest, but I'm glad we could get back and, to talk about it.
Yeah. I think the last time you were on, we were talking about how all the Fords didn't have the chips and they were parked. I was coming up through Kentucky, and I happened to glance over and I seen Kentucky Speedway.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was hundreds and hundreds of trucks sitting over. I couldn't believe it.
Yep.
Just parked there waiting for chips.
Yep. And the crazy thing is, Lewis, we saw here, it was last week or the week before at the New York Auto Show. So Ram introduced their new REV, their new electrified model. We've got the Silverado EV. So now we have the F-150 Lightning. So we're definitely seeing more of these electrified trucks, but kind of some of the news that's in the industry right now. There was a study that was done recently by Automotive Manufacturing Solutions, which is an industry periodical and industry publication, and then ABB Robotics. And they recently conducted a survey of 600 global automotive industry experts. And in that survey, they had asked them, a number of different things, like, for example, do you believe that EV adoption or these electrification timelines for EVs, do you believe they're realistic, whether they're 2030, 2040, and whatever the case may be? They asked the same thing about sustainable manufacturing. They asked these same participants in the survey about workplace challenges. And the responses were pretty interesting, Lewis. When it came to, electrification targets, it was really split 60-40 between, a group of people that said, we think we can do it. But, there's a 40% that say, I don't think so. I don't think that this is realistic to do. And so I think what you're starting to see is that you have these suppliers in the industry who are bidding on, all of these different components, that go into to make the car. And one thing is interesting about this is, the manufacturers, if you will, so the Fords and the Hondas of the world and the Mercedes-Benzes of the world, the ones that have the brands, as it were, they build very little of the car themselves. They're relying on the suppliers to do this for them. Right. And so the suppliers are bidding on these projects. But not only do these automakers have ICE components, now they also have electrification and hybrid. So suppliers are really balancing in a given product line like three different things. So there's an internal combustion one, there's a hybrid version, now there's an electrified version. And these suppliers are just getting slammed. They can't keep up with the timelines. They can't keep up bidding on all of this stuff. So in that survey that was done by American Manufacturing Solutions and ABB Robotics, some of the respondents reflected that there's just too much happening all at one time. there's just too many initiatives going on all at one time that eventually that pushes back that timeline. And some of those timelines for electrification, they're not realistic, because either the industry has so much going on and suppliers can't keep up, or on the consumer side, for guys like you and I, Lewis, it's like, okay, where do I charge this thing? Where do I plug in? Can I plug in at my house? If I don't have a garage and I park on the street, then what? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still a lot of unanswered questions that this survey is starting to, so when you, so since the last time you had texted me about the lightning, and we couldn't get our schedules to line up, that survey has come out. And I think it's almost split evenly in the industry between what I think you could say there's the optimist who think that, we can get to electrification and we can get to all these timelines that have been proposed. We can do it. And then I think there's the other group that's in the 40% that's like the realist that are like, it may very well happen, but it's just not going to happen by 2030 or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. I think Ray popped in, but he's not connected. Let's see.
Yeah, we got to get Ray on here.
Yeah, and make sure he didn't text me or anything. So I've been hearing through the grapevine that a lot of these batteries are catching on fire.
Yeah, so this is interesting. And I'm actually with a colleague getting ready to write a story about this for AutoVision News.
Hold on one second. Let me.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Go ahead and give the audience your websites and all your information.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website, automoblog.net, that is our main website there, automoblog.net. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter, just at Automoblog. For Automoblog, we have Instagram as well. We also have a YouTube channel that we're trying to grow. So we would love to, have you follow us on YouTube. Just search for Automoblog on YouTube. Automoblog is our more consumer-focused publication. So vehicle overviews, interesting pieces on, we just did a piece on NHRA, one of the drivers here recently, product reviews, tons of product reviews. So we've got all of that stuff on Automoblog, and then AutoVision News, autovision-news.com. That is more industry-focused publication. So covering electrification, covering autonomous driving, covering advanced safety systems. But really, that publication is pointed towards people who are working in the industry. So, so that's kind of the split between the two.
Great. Okay, so go ahead with your.
Yeah. So this battery thing, the SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, released a press release yesterday or the day before, talking about this very thing, about batteries in storage and whether or not they pose a risk. And so this is a new topic for me, Lewis. Like, I'm just now learning about this. So me and a colleague, Molly McCarthy, we're going to write a story about this for AutoVision News. Essentially, one, if these batteries are in storage, what risk do they pose? What are some of the hazards? And then for our readers for AutoVision News who may work in that part of the industry, what precautions they can take if they have a facility that is storing these batteries. So what can they do to mitigate fire risk and things like that? I'm going to my email and let me find the exact press release here, because this is, it's SAE International, Society of Automotive Engineers International, issues best practice for lithium-ion battery storage. And so what they're trying to do, and I'm quoting from the press release now, with the increasing use of lithium-ion batteries in automotive-type applications, which I'm assuming they mean electric vehicles, a need for recommendations on how to store lithium-ion batteries has been identified due to multiple issues involving battery storage, including, and I'll list off here, hazardous risk associated with electrical and chemical energy contained within the batteries, general lack of existing industry standards and codes for storage, which I think is what the Society of Automotive Engineers is trying to develop, regulations that are in development, and then hazardous events that have occurred in storage facilities. So now, quoting from SAE here again, there have been several events involving lithium-ion batteries in storage, which have led to the development of new fire codes. These code changes aim to improve the safe storage of lithium-ion batteries, but do not provide specific knowledge about the hazards and mitigations available for every situation. So this is SAE J3235. That's their code, J3235. Was developed by both battery industry and fire and emergency response experts to help raise awareness of the hazards associated with lithium-ion batteries and the steps that the industry should take to develop a robust and safe storage plan. That was, Lewis, that was yesterday, April 19th. That's that press release that came out. So I am just now learning about this topic, but we are going to write about it for AutoVision News. So we want to interview a rep from the SAE. We want to talk to somebody about fire standards and kind of go further into it, because clearly if the SAE is trying to put a standard around it, then it's an issue, or they have reason to believe that it may be an issue going forward.
Well, on my school bus that I'm building,
Okay.
I'm going to be using those batteries, and I haven't heard anything from the forums or any groups that I belong to about it happening to, like, house batteries, they would call them.
Yep.
Now I wonder if it's something to do with connecting with automotive stuff, like the computers and the brakes, and everything's all electric. I wonder if that makes a difference than the house batteries that are going to be in like an RV.
Right. And it might very well. And those are some of the questions that Molly and I, my colleague and I, who are going to write this article for AutoVision News, those are some of the questions that we kind of hope to figure out. And I think the thing is, Lewis, is that it's all going electric, or it's all going software defined. So all these vehicle functions that normally would have been, with the exception of brakes and tires and, certain suspension components. Right. I mean, you still have to have some mechanical components in the car, but most everything that you're going to see going forward is what would have been represented by a mechanical component is going to be represented by a software component. And we're just going to continue to see that more and more. So if there is I don't know, this is what I hope to find out, but if you have a battery, right, and it's emitting energy, and then you're putting it in with all this other same type of stuff, electronics and software, and what are the hazards, what are the risks? I think it's an important topic, and I'm eager to learn more about it.
Right. Hey, there he is.
Hey, Ray.
Holy crapola. It's good to be seen, because you know what? For some reason, StreamRider just didn't see my mic or my camera. I'm like, guys, I just used it like a couple hours ago on Zoom. Like, don't tell me it's. Are you sure it's plugged in? Yes, I'm sure it's plugged in. It has a lithium-ion battery, and it just blew up. God damn it, get Carl Anthony over here. I need help fast.
I know. I always feel like I'm the bearer of bad news every time I come on, because Lewis and I have been on for 15 minutes, and we're talking about shortage of vehicles and fires and batteries and all that stuff. So anyway, despite the news, it's good to see you, Ray.
It's good to see you too. I know our listeners hate the hell out of you. They really do. They're like,
I know.
You gotta get that guy Carl. All he does is come on and give us bad news and knocks everything and gives us doom and gloom. No, they don't say that.
No,
Chris says that to me afterwards.
Listen, this is why we love when you come on, because we're hearing a different side of things that most people don't hear or know about. So we love when you come on and give us the knowledge.
No, I appreciate that, guys, and I think one thing that after. See, I don't even remember now, Ray, how many years I've been coming on Motormouth Radio now, maybe 5, 6 or 7, but
yeah, at least
I can tell you, one thing I've learned is that from listening to your show is that you just got to do your homework, and you just got to read up, and you just got to, before you make any kind of buying decision, you got to know the facts with the car, and that goes for me who's writing about it, and trying to inform other people. So I think a lot of this stuff, Lewis, like I've said before, I'm learning as I go. I think last time I was on Motormouth Radio, it was just electrification and electric vehicles is just one of those things that it's just happening. It's just the direction we're going, whether we like it or not. And I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't know if that's the answer to all our problems, but I think we're going to find out very quickly because everything is just kind of trending in that direction.
Like the microwave, when the microwave came in.
Right.
You talk about, doing your research. That's how we get our research. We follow automoblog.net.
Thank you.
We watch you guys, and that's
Thank
how
you.
we learn and on your Twitter page, there's always great information. Sometimes 3 and 4 at a time you guys will throw up there, which is like, where are they getting all of this from? Like, these guys are overachievers and they're making me look bad. So slow down a little bit. Jeez.
We have a very good team behind us. David and Brenda from our North Carolina office down there, they do just an incredible job. Alex Hartman, who runs our social media, our creative director, Alvin Reyes, Tony Baraz, our main writers.
Tony, the stuff Tony puts up. He does, of course, a lot of racing stuff, a lot of F1. But he puts up some quirky stuff too, which I'm always a big fan of. I like Tony's stuff.
Tony is Tony. If Automoblog had a most interesting man, that would be Tony. I mean, who worked as a stunt driver in film and then studied abroad in Europe, and then ended up
with some broads in Europe too. But I got smacked all the time every time I did it, so they didn't let me continue. Okay.
Yeah, but. Then he was part of a motorsports sponsorship company with IndyCar with an old friend of his named Bill Healy, who was active on the circuit back in the day, and then he ended up going to work for Boeing, and then he was a video game, like in the early days of Forza. So like when the Forza series first came out with Microsoft and Turn 10, he was one of the original game testers and evaluators for that. And then he just kind of happened to bump into us, and we've just, for the last, 10 years now, he's just kind of, he's been with us, but he writes a lot of movie stuff lately.
Oh, cool. So I tell you what, just to show people just how easy it is and sometimes how it works, you can save me the Saturday afternoon email. You want to come on the show Sunday? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
let's make it official.
This is my show book right here.
All right.
So I am now going to officially write you in on Sunday. So remind me. No, this will remind me. Good, because you were overdue for you anyway.
Yeah, I'll try to come on with good news this time. I
I'll
really
tell you,
will.
There is a big man. A couple of weeks ago we did a fundraiser, so we always wanted to get a guest in on the second hour, and my first thought was, let's bring in Carl. Yeah. You had only been on a few weeks before, but then I said, you know what? I got to change it up. I just had a gut feeling, and I said, Macho Man Brian is my guy. And I tell you something, he hit it out of the park. It was people should visit our YouTube channel. It's Motormouth Video, and you can see it. You can see that show, and you'll see Brian. We sat back and let him run it because the guy he was on fire, just on fire.
I love it.
I think he was literally blazing at one point. So
that sounds like Macho Man Brian.
Yeah. So
I love it.
Definitely worth checking out.
So, Carl, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If all the gas cars went away today, what electric vehicle would you buy tomorrow?
Boy, this is touche,
Louis, touche. That's hitting with his own medicine.
Yeah, it really is. And here's the thing. Let me be 100% honest with you. I don't know, and I wouldn't want to give up my gasoline vehicle just yet. But if that's the case, I am thinking that I'm going to go something affordable. So like a Hyundai Kona EV, or something that's a small, affordable SUV type EV, so that I can get my mind around, like, what do I need to do at home? Because it is different. Driving an EV is different. And I would not want to spend an insane amount of money for a high caliber EV, if I'm not 100% familiar with it.
Right.
And so what I'd want to do is I'd want to get, okay, how do I charge at home? What's the most effective way? What's the most efficient way for me to do that? Like, what are my driving habits like? Do I have, every twice a year to see family, I take a 900-mile drive. So whatever I get is going to have range enough to, at least get me 300 or 400 miles. And then somewhere along the way, I need to map out my charging. And there are apps and there are tools available to do that. But my thought generally is that cars today are so expensive. It just like automatically by default. So even your regular sedans, even your regular crossovers, your gasoline versions, they're just expensive. Things are expensive to buy. And that doesn't count whether or not you have a truck or an SUV. Well, electric vehicles, one of the main concerns with electric vehicles is that they are still expensive. They still cost more money than their gasoline counterparts. So say, Lewis, to your question, if everything went away tomorrow, the electric vehicle that I'm looking for probably first and foremost is going to be something that's got great range, something that is reliable, something that I know I can get serviced, something that, I know that the warranty is good, and something that is an affordable set of wheels that, that's going to get me reliably and safely from point A to point B. So I'm looking for, I'm thinking I'm looking for like a smaller, like a Kona EV is what comes to mind, is something in that sort of size.
Now, here's a question. I just thought of this when you were talking. Does the size matter with the EV, like a truck or a small Honda? Will a small Honda get more mileage?
Correct. Yep. It is essentially, in so many words, similar to a gasoline powertrain. So your mileage with a gasoline engine is going to vary. So trucks are a great example. If you have a truck and you're a Sunday driver, you're going to get much better gas mileage than if you have a heavy payload, or if you're driving through the desert, say like towing a trailer like in Arizona or a place like that. With electric vehicles, it's the same way. The more load you have on the system, the more you're going to wear out your juice, as it were. So that includes the air conditioner, that includes any infotainment things like navigation, your audio. Like a lot of people today, they'll use, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and things like that. All of that has an impact on essentially the battery, because now you really, in this case, you really are using the juice from the battery. You really are, you don't have an alternator, right? So you really are relying on the battery for that. So, and then it comes back to weight. A heavier vehicle, I'm generalizing here, but the heavier the vehicle, the more fuel it's going to use. So if even on an electrified platform, if you have a smaller sedan or if you have a smaller crossover, that in theory is going to get more range than a larger truck or an SUV, where it has the capacity to seat more people, carry more cargo, and things like that. This is, of course, all generalizing, but yes, and that is part of the concern with EVs, right? And so you see this today with trucks, in gasoline and diesel trucks, and it's like this insane, like wacky number, that it can tow 30,000 pounds. And you're like, yeah, the 30,000-pound truck is this squatty little bed, dual rear wheels, two-wheel drive with a single cab that nobody in the world is going to buy. That's not your crew cab truck cannot tow that. It's very different. The marketing is very different. What marketing says the truck can tow is really different than probably what the actual GVWR is and all of that stuff. So you have to take some of those advertisements when they say when properly equipped, right? So one of the concerns you can run into with EVs is that you get this very high number. It goes X number of miles on a charge, 300 miles, 400 miles, whatever the case may be. But that range is going to drop if it's an SUV and you've got your whole family in there. You've got cargo, maybe you're towing a little fishing boat or a trailer or something like that. So range can come down dramatically based on weather, based on load in the vehicle, and all of that stuff. So one of the issues with electrification is, okay, great, I have 300 or 400 miles worth of range, but by the time I get all my stuff in there and I drive through the Midwest when it's freezing cold in December or January, do I really have that much range? And the answer probably is no, you don't. Now the other issue is then if it's cold. So I just know, and these are simple. I'm probably really generalizing here, but it's just simple, just analogies. Like if you just like a portable jump starter, like a portable battery charger, right? That are very handy tools. If you have a dead battery, they won't charge if it's a certain temperature. So like if you look in the owner's manual for some of these portable jump starters, they recommend that you charge it, in your home because the temperature is above freezing. And after a certain threshold, they just don't deliver power to the battery if it's too cold. So one of the questions, potentially that consumers could have is, okay, I live, in the Midwest and I have to travel during the winter. And if it gets to be below freezing, does the charger work? One, wherever that charging station is at, does that charging work in the extreme cold? And second to that, if it does work, does it take longer for me to charge my EV versus gas, which even in the coldest weather, you just fuel up and go. Those are all. So to your question, Lewis, it's yes. And then there's all of sort of that backstory behind there that consumers kind of perk up to and go, wait a minute, where I drive isn't exactly the most ideal place. How does that affect range, charging, and all of that stuff? And those questions really have yet. Those questions are being discussed, but they have yet to really be answered in the industry right now.
It's another thing too with I know when people change their tires, there's very specifically specified tires for the EV cars, and you can put other ones on, but now your mileage is going to vary.
Correct.
And I just had a thought when you were talking, Carl. It's kind of ironic when you said the EV car has no alternator. It's kind of ironic that the gas guzzling cars they want to get rid of, the one thing the gas car does is constantly recharges the electrical system.
Right.
Right. But the electric cars don't. And the other thing I wanted to say was the thing that I'm curious about that I haven't read anything about is when we talk about vehicle size and going further, like a smaller car, one would think, and I would agree that a smaller EV would probably have an easy time, going a couple hundred miles than a bigger car. But all isn't equal because the battery packs may be different sized appropriate for the car.
Correct.
And the thing you can't get is that Ioniq or the Kona, and you can't do like the big block in the Vega. You can't put the the SUV battery in a little car so you can really supersize it.
Right.
So you're handcuffed by what the manufacturer wants to give you.
Right.
And
this is a hot topic. I mean, it's I recently, so I do a podcast separate to the work I do with Automoblog and AutoVision News, and the podcast is associated with AutoVision News. But I had a guest on who started a company called Pionix. They're a company based in Germany, and the one thing they're trying to do is the charging software, like at the charging station. So you pull up to the charging station. They are trying to facilitate throughout Europe an open source charging software so that this software goes on any charger anywhere and it works on any vehicle no matter what. What they have found over in Europe is that, let's just say, for example, you had 100 different electrified cars. You had 100 different cars, and then you had 100 different chargers. You would have to, if all of those chargers had a different operating system, in order to make sure that charging is effective, you'd have to test every car against every charger. Right. And then after a while, you see that if you want to make a whole continent or a whole country electrified, just how impossible that is. So so there's a chance that your car may not fit the software that's running on that charger. And you don't know that as a customer until you pull up and plug in and it just doesn't work. So what they are trying to do is essentially say you have one charging operating software that works no matter what, whether you are a fleet operator, whether you're a government operator and you have a vehicle like that, whether you're an everyday citizen, whether you're charging at home, whether you're charging in some sort of yard with other fleet vehicles parked around. And I think that is a very important consideration, for just, again, the timelines are.
Sorry.
So hey, I was, see, that's the thing, because I'm being the bearer of bad news here. So they're like, YouTube's
They're
like
counting you down.
counting me down, but I think that's important to this whole conversation about getting, if consumers are going to adopt this and we're going to hit all these timelines, you have to have a consistent charging network. Otherwise, that timeline is going to have to be pushed back or it's impossible to meet. So what I've noticed, Ray, about this topic is that once you get into it, there's a lot of different rabbit holes to go down. And the answer is not as clear as press releases make it out to be.
Right. Exactly. I found that, and that's what's frustrating. And, as you learn how to read an article, like, you read a newspaper story, I always tell my wife, look at the headline, then go to the last paragraph, because that's where they're going to tell you the meat. Everything else is going to be fluff to fill that space pretty much. And you see it's easy to see what they don't tell you. And that's when you want to find more. And then you have to find a source, like Automoblog or somebody reliable who can, if the information's out there even.
I think that, the next 10 years are going to be interesting. The consensus in the automotive industry, like just here in Detroit, is that one, the automotive industry does not go through very many inflection points because the automotive industry is very rooted in what it's always been doing for a very long time. That's just kind of what it is. But now everything is changing at such a rapid rate. So some of that information, Ray, is only out there really in the form of like this kind of packaged PR sort of way.
Right.
And what we're doing on a show like this is kind of opening that up and dissecting it. So
as much as we can. So
as much as we can.
Here's my conspiracy theory angle on it. What's your take on this? How much of it do you think is being driven by government influence?
I think that's a huge part of it. I think that's an absolute huge part of it. It can't be ignored.
If we go with that, which is how I feel, then I also feel there could also be a lot of, okay, guys, this is what's going on. Don't tell anybody, or else your ass is on the line and your funding will be cut, or whatever, whatever they hold over their heads. So, and it's case in point. When you look at a municipality level and even a county or sometimes a state level, those people will tell you, hey, we don't have the infrastructure for this. Where are we supposed to get that? Are they coming in and going to rewire us? No, everybody, a man on the street knows that. So how come the big, I know the car makers aren't that stupid. They're very smart guys. Right. I think only the government can be that stupid, truthfully.
I was thinking about that too, that what if a different administration comes in and slows it back down?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Then that's going to throw the car manufacturers in a tizzy, because they're fighting right now to get it done.
Except for Toyota and Honda, who said they weren't throwing it all in. They were going to wait because they didn't believe in it.
I think that's smart. I
did too.
I really do.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't be the first time historically that manufacturers like Honda and Toyota have been proven right when there's a fundamental shift in American history. See the 1970s with the gas crisis and GM building big Cadillacs and Hamtramck, and how the Honda Civic came in during a fuel crisis, right? So I think that Toyota and Honda is wise, and I think a hybrid is a nice step. It is. And even I work in the industry and I cover electrification and all that stuff, but if I would not want to right now make the jump from gasoline to electric, I'd much rather make the jump from gasoline to hybrid.
Exactly.
And I think most consumers would feel more comfortable with that
Yes.
to sort of get their feet wet before they're going all in. And I think sometimes, you'll see these surveys that are done and consumers will have an overall positive reaction to electric vehicles. And it's like, yes, that might be true. They might be optimistic about it, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that they want to own one tomorrow.
Well, and even so, it could be that they're of the ecology minded type, and they think
Totally.
it's a great. But you know what? They didn't get the price for having that charging port wired up at their house yet either.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've always said is go into any urban area, like by us, it'd be Queens, New York, or where there's a lot of people and apartments and houses on there. And I've done this. I've sat in the intersection and looked north, south, east, and west on a weekend afternoon, and all you see are parked cars in all directions.
Yep.
So how are those cars all being charged? You're not running extension cords out across your street.
Right.
Ain't happening.
Right. And another thing that, to that point, Ray, is maybe something that you don't think about, but have you ever pulled in to the gas station and you're like, oh, I'm such a dummy because my tank is like, my fuel door is on the left side and I pulled it on the right side.
Yeah.
And then all you do is just turn around, right?
Right.
Well, what if the way you have to park on the street, your little electrified door, like where you open up and charge it, what if that opens up and faces the street?
Well,
because you have no choice now.
And I'm pretty sure in Detroit it's the same way as here in the urban areas. You're lucky to get a spot, let alone get one that faces a certain direction.
Right.
Now, here's another question. Running an extension cord out to your car, it's going to take your car forever to charge.
Yeah, it wouldn't be practical at all.
And you want to talk? Can you say trip hazard? I mean, now, if you can picture what I'm talking about with how many cars there are, and Lewis, I'm sure you got it in Ohio too, in certain parts of town. If you had an extension cord for every car, you couldn't walk down the street. You'd be like, step on a crack, break your mother's back. You wouldn't make it 4 feet without falling on your face.
Right. So
yeah. I know.
Again, there's and Ray, I know we've talked about this before on Motor Mouth Radio a lot. It's like there's the headlines and there's the polished PR version, and then there's the reality. And I think that and here's the thing, I'll fully admit this, is that in 2015, and I think a lot of us did, we fell hard into autonomous cars. We really did. I mean, with Automoblog, we were covering
with that, boy. I remember when you first come on, you put that to Joe and I, and it was serious. I looked at Joe like, hey, he's serious. We're going to be honest with him.
But here's the thing, though. Looking back, Ray, I realized that I got caught up in that sort of there's a thing called the Gartner hype cycle, and it kind of starts off with this innovation, and then you go up, and it's like called the slope of enlightenment is what it's called. Okay. And it's where a technology holds all kinds of promise, and we're going to do it. We're going to go out there, and we're going to, it's going to be great. And then you fall off into the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner, Gartner. You fall off into the Gartner hype cycle to something called the trough of disillusionment, and it's this straight down kind of a bowl that you fall into. And this happened with autonomous driving, and it happened hard.
Straight up sci-fi. Like who wrote that? Isaac Asimov? Like these are straight up sci-fi terms, man. This is really cool.
And then you get into what's called the slope of enlightenment. So basically, if you've got if anybody who's into math out there, like calculus, you have an exponential curve with a huge drop, and then you followed by a logarithmic curve that kind of gradually ascends.
Yeah. So it's not even okay. So gotcha.
And the trough of disillusionment is essentially the downward side of that exponential curve, where you've come off all of these promises. So we'll just use autonomous driving. It's going to make safer roads. Okay. It's going to relieve congestion, all the benefits. And then, the promises of full production by 2020 or by 2025, or whatever the case may be. And then we fell down that huge curve on the other side into the trough of disillusionment. And what caused the trough of disillusionment is not just one thing, but it's a couple of different things. So for example, when you had an automatic emergency braking system And AAA said, okay, we're going to test on basic cars that everyday people will buy, Hondas and Kias and Toyotas and Chevys and things like that. And they did closed course testing, not even out in the real world, closed course testing at mild speeds of 20 to 30 miles an hour. And they sent like the dummies across the road there. So the car is coming, the test car is coming. And so they send out like this, it's like an inflatable kind of a dummy that looks like a pedestrian, and it goes across the thing. So many times the car hits the dummy, boom, doesn't stop, or the automatic emergency braking activates too late. And so then all of a sudden, collectively, you go, wait a second. I mean, most people are driving, during the day, but busy traffic, not on a closed course. What about driving at night? What about driving in bad weather? So then engineers have to go back to the table to kind of like refigure out these systems. And then you realize, wow, we're really far away. Then you have a global pandemic in 2020, which nobody could have seen. That changes everything. Yep. So the slope of enlightenment, the logarithmic curve, is that you kind of find out along the way just how hard it is. And I wonder if electrification is going to go through something similar, where we're kind of riding this roller coaster up of all these different promises and all these different innovations. And then after a while, we're going to fall like we did with autonomous driving. We're going to fall into that trough of disillusionment where we go, wait a minute. It's not that it's impossible. There is just a lot of stuff that needs to be done in order for this to happen. And now we're going to start logarithmically, slowly going up the slope of enlightenment as we make discoveries along the way. And as we're finding out with autonomous driving, yes, those discoveries are happening, and autonomous cars are more capable now than they ever were before, but they're nowhere close to even being in for mainstream consumption.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that'll enlighten people is the charging issue at home. I know where I worked, we built a new building. It was kind of, it's a green building. They got a lot of green credit for it. And then all of a sudden in our main faculty parking lot, these like 3 charging stations popped up. But like one guy had a, I don't even know what the hell he was driving at the time. It was probably a Toyota. It was probably a Toyota, Prius. And they just sat there. And I asked somebody finally, like, what's the deal with those charging stations? Oh, well, because we got all the green credits for the building, there was another line item that we could have gotten more credit if we put in charging stations within X amount of feet. So, we did it and was subsidized by it. I said, even though nobody's using it, but so I thought it was ahead of time, but it was really, again, just for the money.
It always goes back to the money.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm gonna let all the fellas in because I know they're chomping at the bit to ask questions.
Oh, they want a piece of Carl, that's for sure.
Oh my God. I'm sorry that I went back to my podcast before here, but my most recent guest was his name was hey Terry. Hey Keith.
Hey Carl, nice to meet you.
Hey Tyler, good to see you guys. Macco Man Brian.
I got a list for you, Carl.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So
Carl, what is that podcast? Tell us all how we could find that.
Okay, so the podcast that I have is called Auto Vision News Radio. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple. You can find it just anywhere you would normally get a podcast, but Auto Vision News Radio.
Okay.
My last guest that I had on this week, he is the Secretary General for an organization in Europe called CLEPA, CLEPA. And what CLEPA is it's the European Association of Automotive Suppliers. They represent about 3,000 different suppliers across the whole of the European Union. And one of the questions I asked him, one of the things we talked about on the podcast was, Benjamin, from your perspective, the 3,000 different suppliers that you represent in Europe, how does the European Union committing to climate neutrality by 2050, how does that affect what you're doing? And one of the things he said that really stuck out to me is he talked about this idea of what's called technology liberty and technology openness. And here's what he said. Now I'll quote him. he said that what the European Commission has put out, what the European Commission has put forward to achieve this climate neutrality electrification timeline by 2050, and sooner in some areas. But he said on the surface, they would say it's technology neutral. And he's like, on the surface, that is true. It's technology neutral. But electrification seems to dominate the conversation, and then it becomes this very narrow path forward. So what Benjamin Krieger, Secretary General of CLEPA, is saying for these 3,000 automotive suppliers that they represent in Europe, what they're saying is that, okay, electrification might just be one of the ways that we get there. And what we should do is we should encourage technology openness, that if there's another technology that somehow would come to the forefront that maybe is better than electrification in a certain part or a certain area, that we need to consider that, and we need to not make the focus going forward so narrow. So again, so that's a European perspective on that. And so you could say the same thing in the US. Is electrification the only way forward?
Was he hinting at hydrogen at all?
Fuel cell. Yeah, hydrogen fuel cell. And essentially what he was saying is that it might come from anywhere. So maybe it's a super efficient 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that's still gasoline driven, that we should still allow that to take place. If our goal is just to reduce emissions in Europe, then electrification is one way to do it, but it's a narrow path forward with very aggressive timelines that may or may not be possible to hit. So what he is saying is that they're trying to advocate for technology openness, that their suppliers last year across the whole of Europe filed 39,000 patents. And so essentially what he is getting at is that there's enough research and development innovation that there might be other steps along the way to sort of help this before we decide to go full in on electrification before we're ready or before consumers are fully ready. It's a huge, like I said, there's so many rabbit holes here. I mean, the big takeaway though is that it's not as pretty and polished as press releases and PR makes it out to be. There's so much more under the surface.
I want to know if Brian has a roast beef sandwich on that list.
No. We've been talking, you guys have gone on, and I had to kind of backtrack. When we were talking about the new cars, I have several shop owners that had to get a new car because of tax reasons.
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of them had bought some Toyota pickup trucks, and I asked them all afterwards and they're gas driven, they're nothing. They're just like, the Tundras and everything. And they all thought it was completely amazing is that when they got done, paid and signed, and they handed in the keys, they said, "Where's the other set of keys?"
Yeah.
You're right.
And they said, "Oh, we'll mail them to you when we can build them."
Yep.
Really?
So they all have just one key to the car.
Wow.
So God forbid that the dog eats your remote, or the wife throws it out the window,
or your favorite hat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting on that.
It's huge.
Then we got into, you're talking about chargings. Well, we just came out with a new lithium ion jump box.
Okay.
And I thought it was very amazing. In the small print, it said that it was in a fireproof casing.
Right.
So, because we have problems now with our lithium ion batteries, they swell up, they sit in the shop, they, either extreme heat or extreme cold. Right. And that gets into my next section where we were talking about charging. So I have on my route, Dolly, a good friend of mine, I used to work at him with the dealership. He's got a gas station. He was the first gas station. I just told that story the other day, Brian, to somebody. I couldn't remember the year, but and they're like, "What? This guy did that?" I'm like, "Yeah, he did." Yeah, this was about 4 years ago, I guess, 3 years ago. I thought it was longer. Okay. Yeah, maybe a little longer. It was before the pandemic.
Okay.
It was before the pandemic. Since we use the pandemic as a timeline now, right? So
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was before. But Dolly, he has a gas station. He's the first guy to pull the tanks out of the ground and convert to EV. He's got charging stations.
Okay.
And he's first guy. Unfortunately, he had to do a lot of it on his own. They all thought he was crazy, but he did this EV, and he's got charging. And it's funny because I will ask him next Friday about any situation with the cold or extreme heat.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious because we talked about that about actual charging, and we'll see what they had to
That's
do.
interesting, Brian. There's a gas station right up the road from me. They were planning on expanding and have like behind the building, they were going to put, like big truck diesel pumps. And they scrapped that plan and they put a whole row of Tesla chargers in instead.
Yeah.
So they have gas pumps up front and then like the convenience store and restaurant, whatever. And then behind is a whole row of Tesla chargers. It's one of the largest.
Dolly pulled everything out of the ground, and he had just put charging stations in. And of course, the governor or the state of Maryland, they had a big to do, and I thought it was kind of crappy on them because right around the corner they put up charging stations. So
right,
they couldn't. This guy does this. And of course, a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to do? People come in, they got to wait 20 minutes, type thing. And of course, Dolly, like I said, he's a super great guy. He's like, well, I'm opening it up to the community.
Sure.
There's a deli across the street. There's a barber shop over here. There's a place to get your nails done. There's a park to sit, and he's put the community out there so that they can come off of this. And of course, they all fought over where they could put the charging stations in front of their place. You know what I'm saying? But that's
right.
I don't want to get nasty about it, but
Carl, I have.
But it was funny. I had to leave yesterday. Actually, today I was there. No. Last Friday, I go there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I changed that from Friday to Thursday. I went there today, and I actually where I parked the tool truck, I had a leaf come in. Of course, they're charged from the front.
Right.
And of course, they put these charging stations in just like regular gas pumps. So it's funny that we're talking about parking and putting cars in a position that you can charge. Well, this guy like stops in the right smack dab in the middle of the parking lot to hook up his charge instead of going up to the next pump so that he's out. So now for 20 minutes,
electricity pump.
He's taken up the whole parking lot. You're trying to navigate around this guy because now for 20 minutes he can't move because he's stuck to this thing. So
Carl, I have a question off the Ethernet here.
Sure.
My buddy Bill is asking if he's heard that there's no longer going to be tax incentives if you buy an American electric vehicle, and those incentives come out of Washington. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I have, and there was a list that was released just this week on Monday, and I believe there's only 10 vehicles total in the U.S. that qualify for the full $7,500. So not very many, essentially.
And were they all non-American built cars, foreign cars?
Let me look. I don't know. I saw the thing. I've seen the things on LinkedIn, and some of my fellow automotive journalists covered it. I don't know what the vehicles are, but there's only 10 for the full.
If you find out, if you could send me a link or a copy, I'd appreciate it.
Now,
I know Car and Driver covered it. Let me look here.
Hey Tyler.
Yeah.
I know you've researched this because you're that type of guy, but what are you hearing about the house batteries that we're going to put in our buses? Catching on fire, or have you?
So that has a big thing to do with the chemical composition. So the reason why most solar systems use the LiFePO4, so LiFePO4, that's lithium iron phosphate 4. The reason they use that chemical composition is because it renders the lithium portion of that equation inert. So It's a lot safer if you have a damaged battery, if you have a puncture, anything like that. Because what happens is the lithium in lithium ion can react with oxygen, and it becomes exothermic, right? So as it reacts, it creates a lot of heat. It doesn't actually catch on fire itself, but it can burn the oxygen around it. So there's actually a couple of YouTube channels that do a lot of solar battery review stuff. And one of his favorite things is he takes very, very inexpensive lithium solar batteries and he puts them through the rigors of testing.
Oh, the young dude?
Just recently, he tested a very, very inexpensive Chinese sourced battery, and all it said was lithium. It didn't say lithium ion or lithium iron phosphate. It didn't say anything like that. It just said lithium. And finally, at the end of the testing, he punctured it with a drill bit, and it just went up like a freaking haystack. So that and that's why you see a lot of vehicle batteries switching to that. So the trade-off is lithium ion is a lot more
rechargeable.
I have the it's on the tip of my tongue, but basically the energy density in lithium ion is about the greatest that we can achieve affordably right now with different battery compositions. So lithium iron phosphate has less energy per pound potential storage wise than lithium ion. So that's why your phone batteries, your computer batteries, anything that spaces of an absolute premium is all still lithium ion battery chemistry. But lithium iron phosphate in a situation like a house battery, like hooked up to your solar system at home, or in an RV where you've got larger weight capacity, is a much safer battery chemistry to have. And that's what really freaks me out about these people taking like Leaf or Tesla car batteries and repurposing them as mobile solar power storage, because they still have the much higher risk of a fire situation.
Tyler, maybe 10 years ago now, there was a company that was making lithium ion motorcycle batteries, and I bought one, and it was an LIFE. And I bought the dedicated charger for it and all, and it worked great. The only problem at the time they had was if that battery went below, it was a 12-volt battery. If it went below 9 volts, it would like short out and die. And I did end up killing one. I had to get a replacement.
Yeah. So the industry has wised up about that recently. They have almost every lithium ion battery of any variety, lithium based batteries in general, are going to have some kind of onboard smarts. And what they do is they cut off the power supply once the voltage reaches a dangerous level.
Right. Yeah, they said that was in the works for next generation. And then, unfortunately, these guys went out of business. It was too bad. They're an American company, too, and they folded.
Looks like Carl might be back with some info.
Yeah. So, Tyler, fascinating stuff. So two things there. That LFP, the EV batteries, Ford is getting into that with something they call Battery Park here in Michigan. So I dropped an article in there. So that is like on the horizon. And then that list I put in from CNET of the 10, there's only like 10 or 11 vehicles that qualify for 100% rebate. And then there's a handful more that qualify for a 50% rebate. So it's not very many electric vehicles this time around that qualify for the full $7,500.
Now, I do have a question for you, Carl.
Yeah, sure.
I missed the first 15 minutes or so of the podcast tonight, so this may be a rehash.
No, you're good.
But when talking about electrification, obviously one of the main focuses is the green status, right? The carbon footprint and all that stuff. Does it come up in conversation very often? Other industries that have exceedingly massive carbon footprints, like merchant shipping?
Good question, and I honestly don't know, but I would imagine that the answer is yes.
Yeah, because I saw a study recently that said that the top 15 largest container and tanker ships in the world per year produce more carbon emissions than the entirety of North America's automobiles.
Yeah, right. So I would imagine that those conversations are there. I don't know. only because I'm not in that industry.
Right.
But here's what I sense anyway. Here's what I think. So the way that it's phrased in automotive is that the automotive industry looks at it and says, okay, we're a big industry, we have to do something. So whether that's we make electric cars, whether we get into sustainable manufacturing, and sustainable manufacturing is one of those things where it's like, well, to make steel, you still need, to do steel, you still need high temperatures, right? So maybe that is not as sustainable as other parts of the manufacturing process, if you will, right? So sustainable manufacturing isn't cut and dry. But the automotive industry says, okay, you know what? We'll make a paint shop as sustainable as we can, and where else we can do, we'll have zero emissions or whatever the case may be. And I think automotive comes at it from the standpoint of we're a big industry, we got to do something. So I would imagine that in other industries it's very similar. But there is data that's floating around out there in the automotive industry from, credible sources, usually from the companies themselves who are making the products and making the cars, that future buyers want a sustainable vehicle. So right. Not necessarily our generation, not necessarily my generation, but the upcoming generation, they want to know, okay, was this vehicle built in a responsible manner? So, are the tailpipe emissions, either zero or next to nothing? What about the manufacturing footprint? Was this manufactured in a sustainable way? So if other industries, shipping or whoever, if they deem that their future customer base wants sustainability, they're going to drift that way inevitably, because that's what the future buyer wants.
Yeah, but that comes off of the media, because they're only going to say, oh, the automotive is a bad guy. They don't talk about everything else that got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
They pick on the one person. I'm going through another. Of course, being on my route for the last 20 years, 10 years ago or a little more, I went through a big change. They went through cleaning up the neighborhood, getting rid of automotive repair, and they weeded out. Well, we're getting ready to do that again, because a lot of those leases are now up and they won't renew the lease to these companies. And of course, it's like, oh, we got to get rid of these bad guys because they're dirty and they pollute and they leave hazardous material all over the place. And of course, all they need is a few people to get on that bandwagon, and it's down with the automobile. We don't need you. And then, of course, they're going to find out when they can't, go someplace without, running around with the extension cord still plugged in their tail, Right. So
there you go.
Right.
I know a lot of that's media, and we get back. We talked about how Toyota and Honda said, "Oh, we're not going to make the full jump yet," and we're pushing it so much. And I really hate to go here, but just think about what's gone on in the last couple of months with our dollar. Mm-hmm. We have the evil empires that we fight against have all now joined together. They've all said we don't need the dollar anymore. They're all going to other currency, where we're going to get to the point where we're going to have to do something, because we're not going to be able to get, if they're not going to deal with the dollar, and that means we're not buying oil.
And this is the geopolitical, they call it geopolitical factors, which is kind of a catch-all term, but this is the geopolitical factors that affect the supply chain that are beyond anybody's control. And this is another thing that potentially pushes back the timeline for electric cars. There are so many things that can come in and impact it. And
so if they just say, okay, well, we don't need you because we're going to be electric.
Right.
And we're all standing around again wondering, it was funny. I was talking to the shop foreman with a Mustang Mach-E, and I was talking to Vinny, and I said, hey, what if I can't find a charging station? And he goes, oh, well, you can still plug a regular extension cord in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Sure.
And he goes, yeah. He goes, I said, well, how long? He goes, it's going to take you a while. And I said, well, how long is that? 97 hours. Charge your car. So you work a 40-hour week But then the next week, for for almost 2 weeks, you got to take off because you got to wait for your car to charge up.
Right.
So,
You know,
Sign me up.
one important consideration with this whole electric vehicle thing that sometimes doesn't get brought up, and what you tend to have happen is that people will look at, say, like a country like Norway, or they'll look at a country in Europe and they'll say, well, if they can do it, they can go to 100% electrified vehicles, we can too. But what they fail to realize is the sheer size of the United States, the vastness of the United States, which is why Henry Ford had the vision that he had to begin with, of having this mechanical automobile that you could get places faster. So when I go to Europe, I go to Europe several times a year for an autonomous driving conference that I'm involved in, and one of the events that we do every year is in Brussels, and a lot of my fellow colleagues there come from Germany, they come from France, they come from Britain, but they all get there by train, and they always think it's amazing that I had to drive an hour just to get to the airport in Detroit from where I live, drive an hour with traffic to get to the airport to fly out, lay over in New York, and then fly over to Belgium. And
one of my favorite sayings about comparing Europe and their mentality to North Americans' mentality is, in Europe, 100 miles is a long ways, but in North America, 100 years is a long time.
Yep, exactly. That's and once you frame it into that perspective, when it's like in places in Europe where some of my colleagues are in Britain, if they drove as far as I did to see my in-laws and to see my nieces and nephews, they'd be in the ocean. So you're right, Tyler. It's 100 years is a long time, and 100 miles, right? It's just we are a different beast as far as infrastructure goes, and I think that again plays into this whole thing. I mean, I go to visit family in South Dakota several times a year. From Michigan, that's a 900-mile drive. No way I'm making that in an electric vehicle,
and that's where United States, that's part of our freedom.
It is part of our freedom. It is absolutely part of our freedom.
And the electric is going to take away a lot of our freedoms. To be honest.
Well, on your driving there, on the self-driving, that's starting to come back because you're starting to see the advertisements hands-free. They don't talk about driving, but they're talking about hands-free now.
Yep. And
that was all on the media. I mean, a lot of that's the media, and that's that cycle that you're talking about.
Yep.
They take something and run, and as soon as, like I said, they get tired of it, or it's not a knee-jerker. That's all. They play on everybody's feelings, more or less.
As
but
long as it sells, that's what they're going to publish.
Right. It comes right back to this right here. For right now, I don't have any yens or rubles or anything, but right now, it's all about the money. But going along, I thought it was funny. I was in the Lexus dealership, and they had a problem with one of the cars with the automatic braking.
Yeah.
And they were like, who's going to stand in front of this? That was the question. And they laid out the they have plastic, like 44-gallon plastic trash cans.
Right.
And they laid that out, and they came driving in, and it was like bowling for dollars. But, I was like, dude, is that seriously how you're going to test this? And they were like, well, we had to verify the complaint that it doesn't stop. And I was like, man, this is crazy stuff.
I remember a couple years ago, I can't remember if it was like a parody video or if it was an actual like outtake blooper from an auto stop commercial. And it was essentially several automotive industry executives that stood in front of a car and it didn't stop in time and hit them.
Well, that's why I love, if you ever get on YouTube and watch old German safety.
Yeah.
Because they used real people, and they would like you see his Mercedes going down the road, and they'd have a like the Dukes of Hazzard ramp, one wheel, and they would roll it down in the embankment, and it was always great because you see everybody get out and brush the grass and leaves off. I mean, it's the funniest thing. it was tough being a German back in the old days because they didn't use dummies.
Yeah.
They used real things. So
That's why crash test dummies always have German names.
yeah, yes. But I can only imagine standing out in front of a car and doing that. So
well,
Right.
and then now you get in. So this is in my at the conference that I'm a part of. A lot of the presentations are on this very topic, Brian. So it's what this part of the industry would call functional safety, right? So how do we build functional safety into a vehicle? And if we miss it just one time, just once, somebody could die.
yeah.
So if that Lexus, and I'm not picking on Lexus, we can use any automaker, but if that system, that automatic emergency braking system, if something is off in the sensor and it's not getting the data that it needs, or it's obscured by rain or whatever, and they're running it at a 40-gallon drum at the dealership, okay, no big deal. But what about somebody who's a pedestrian, right? You only have to miss one time.
Yeah.
Then you have the litigation side of it. So if something happens, who's ultimately responsible? Am I responsible as the driver? Is the component manufacturer, the supplier who designed the sensor, are they responsible? The person who did the software, is the OEM responsible? So now you have that whole conversation.
That's why a couple of years now, they had that problem
With firearms?
No. With Chrysler. That's why they made this roaming IP where you couldn't get in with a scanner. You needed to have, because what happened was a car was in a body shop and they repaired the car and they did not have the equipment to calibrate the sensors.
Right.
So they were able to get in, found the backside, they hacked it, whatever, disabled it, not telling the customer. The customer goes out, crashes, and kills somebody.
Right.
They go back and try to go after Chrysler. And of course, Chrysler sent out the guys in the white suit and the clipboards. And of course, a lot of people don't realize, and I learned this even 20 plus years ago at Porsche, that those computers have a lot of information in them. And there's stuff that, especially today, I mean, they'll tell you if you farted in the driver's seat, basically. I mean, there's so much stuff. But going along the line, they found out that this was hacked and was turned off. And so that's why they have that auto off website that you have to register your scanner to, and you have to go through them to get into the car, into like a Chrysler or Jeep.
Right.
Actually, Ford, Toyota, Lexus, they all have that capability, but they have not turned it on or have not gone through that. So you can still get in with a regular scanner, not registering through. But like I said, I had this conversation with a lot of people that, they make targets and it'll recalibrate. And some of it is active driving. So all you got to do is drive the car and they reprogram. But there are some that you have to have a fixed spot
Sure.
to start out with. And it's funny because we sell all that stuff, but a lot of guys are like, well, I'll never need it. Well, if you just take a bumper off to replace a headlight, you got to recalibrate that. Just because you put the bumper back, it's not calibrated, and you start having problems. So this is, of course, they make these things more complicated and you get more involved, but that's going to be that's a huge issue with that.
Right.
In there.
Brian, as we're talking about this reminds me that right to repair has been in the news recently, and I know several of my friends in the automotive industry, on LinkedIn that are shop owners. Many of them come from whole families, that's been in their family their whole life.
That's a big thing.
So what's your thoughts on that? Because it feels like that gets into sort of a right to repair, that like the mom and the pop shops are being restricted. These family businesses are being restricted from being able to work on these vehicles safely and effectively. That's my understanding.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. But again, let's take it real simple.
Yeah.
as in, remember when OBD2 came out and that right to repair. So again, they all had their, the smoke and mirrors, because they said, okay, well, we'll just make it global and you get basic information. But if you don't have our system, or, you buy a subscription and get into each category, then they had their own P codes and they started getting into more easier way of diagnosing or going through.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of the very early systems where you needed the targets, but I think they're all going to get more to an active type of thing where they're going to, as long as you measure out the first thing so that it has its base. I mean, that's how I feel that they're going to not get tangled up into that, fix to right thing.
Right.
But I agree. They made it complicated. Why?
A lot of that stuff is starting to creep into the performance industry too, with the EPA tightening down on any kind of aftermarket tampering with not even control devices for emissions, but just turning on the check engine light for control devices. So I just ran into this today for the first time. I went over to a customer's house to help him with his 1998 Trans Am, which is primarily a track race car with a turbo on it and all this other stuff. He doesn't have catalytic converters, all this other stuff. He plans on towing it to the racetrack, yada, yada, yada. And he has a new version of a popular tuning software. And I went in to turn off his check engine light because it's only on for superfluous emissions stuff that's no longer on the vehicle. And it was all grayed out. I couldn't turn anything off. And there was a little footnote that said, oh, to gain access to these parameters, you have to go to our website and take an online training course and then put in an activation code for this particular vehicle. And then they'll let you turn those codes off. So, and I know it's not the company doing that. They're not adding extra steps just because they want to. It's the EPA cracking down on all this junk too.
And the bottom line on that is that all they want is the VIN number, or they want a number, some type of a number, because if they find out that it's registered to be on the road, that's where it comes down. Now, that might take, a year, 2 years, or 3 years down the road.
That's why I drive a car that doesn't have a check engine light.
Yeah. Well, that's like that. That's like the what was it, James Bond, No Time to Die or whatever, when he threw M in the old DB5 there, and she said, I wondered where this car went, and she said, why are we driving this thing? And he goes, because there's no way they could track it. I mean, because
you wondered where it went.
Yeah, because it's 1965. You know what I'm saying? There's there's no way of tracking that thing as long as he threw his phone out the window when he drove it. So.
It's funny that we're talking about that, because my Coupe de Ville, I wanted to go LS, but then there goes the computer and stuff. I'm like, man, I need a Mad Max machine behind the garage in case I got to break out.
That's right.
Or leave it alone.
Remember, Chinese EMPs will take out car batteries too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was many moons ago when I was driving the Mustang home, and I was coming home and went through a lightning strike, man, that cut the car off. It actually hit the car next to me, and I had an MSD on that, and that cut all that out. That was the weirdest feeling going through that when I had lost all power.
Your hair's still standing up from it.
I know. That was tough.
Dan Short is building his FJ.
Yeah.
To run off grid like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing with the battery part of it, but he's doing. I think he's doing it all.
Yeah. So you can do what's called electronic warfare hardening. Basically, you build Faraday cages around a lot of your sensitive stuff. But the problem is a Faraday cage really needs a good source of ground to be totally effective. So you'd have to put your vehicle in a stationary port, a dock, and ground it so that all your Faraday stuff is maximum effective. And then only after, you know, the Big Bang or whatever, dig it out and use it as your apocalypse survival vehicle.
I can't imagine grounds being important.
No, it's only the most critical thing on any vehicle.
That was for my buddy Ray.
Yeah, me and Ray were talking about that this week because I put in LED lights on the bus, the headlights. And as soon as I start the vehicle, they start flashing.
Yeah.
Without the lights being on. So I'm all going crazy, right? So I called Ray. I was like, Ray, help me out here.
And it was funny, Brian, when I was talking to you on the phone, phone was going off. It was Lewis called me about the LEDs. So we were all like in the same on the same zone.
Yeah, that's funny.
Did you end up fixing it, Lewis?
No. So
is it AC voltage leakage from your alternator?
That's what Ray was saying. I didn't check it yet, but when I'm bringing it back across the street, that's my project this week.
Because on medium and heavy duty trucks, that's a big problem because it can play havoc with your ABS sensors if you have ABS in there.
Well, that's an RF. They're frequency based. The other thing that what I told Lewis was I noticed something recently when I watch one of the YouTube video. Couple channels I watch are like dash cam, accidents. Don't ask me why I find that amusing, but as long as it's not mine. And and what I've seen is many times when it's a newer car coming toward the dash cam, you see the headlights pulsating. Mm-hmm. You don't see it with your eye. The camera's picking it up.
Yep.
So, LED flicker.
Yes.
You want to talk about the weirdest thing is my backup camera on the tool truck. Okay. When the car's coming up on me and I look in the camera, they have no lights on. Mm-hmm. The headlights are not lit.
Wow.
But I can look in my mirror on the side and it has the light.
All right. This is a perfect time. I wasn't going to bring this up. You want to talk about the weirdest thing in the world? It's electrical. Tonight, I was working on my Pontiac, had it in the garage, and I used my quick jacks. I set it up under the chassis. And as I was raising the car, now car is powered up, and it's a non-computerized car. It's a 65 Pontiac. Once I got it to a certain point, about a foot off the ground, when I hit the button and went another inch, the horn went off. The horn would just start to blare. I thought the seat flopped forward or something. So I drop it down an inch, and it would stop.
Pinched wire somewhere?
No, I don't know. I raised the car again, that 1 inch, and the horn starts blaring. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So my wife was like, well, maybe that's telling you something. I said, yeah, I'm pulling the horn relay. It's all it is. You got your horn button and you got your relay, and the horn's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Probably. So horns are usually controlled on the ground side.
Right.
And that's typically why you'll have, like, after an accident, the horn stays on. It's not because someone's dead on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
It's because the control wire got pinched somewhere in the front of the car.
Yeah.
So that's probably what happened is as you're lifting the car, everything moves, and something somewhere is probably just pinching that control wire.
Or when they have that death grip on the steering wheel, and when they impact, they bent the inside of the horn ring. And
it's funny because I've had the car on regular, shop lifts many times, and it's never happened. It's only now on the quick jacks that it happens. So I don't know. It's kind of
is the suspension drooping, or are you lifting it by the suspension?
No, I'm lifting it by the chassis.
The body.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's my story.
Crazy stuff.
Ray, the last time I was on, you were making a trip to, is it Indianapolis? You were making a trip to look. How did that go, by the way?
That trip went well. My buddy bought the car.
Okay.
And since then, he's bought a 34-foot trailer. And we were supposed to go back last month to pick it up. But now the guy had some issues. It got postponed probably later this month. Was supposed to drive back out there and pick the car up and all the parts and bring it back here to Long Island.
Sure.
So you can go out there to look at a car, but you can't go out there for PRI.
Well, yeah, it's just got to be the different group of people. Actually, my one buddy would have gone. He would probably go to PRI. Yeah, I'd love to make that show.
Hey, so I got a question real quick. I've been watching videos, and they said that I might have to put a resistor on those lights. So I found these in my toolbox, but how do you know which resistors to put on? Is there a certain? It says universal. How do I figure out what ohms and all that stuff?
Well, it may be a bit of trial and error. It's the same thing as having the what they call the no load flasher or the LED flasher, so that the flash rate is right, because the LEDs offer very little resistance, and that's what you do when you're adding resistance.
Does those resistors have little stripes on them?
Color bands is what
Color bands, because that
yes.
means you have to get the Automotive Bible and see what the resistance is.
You know what? Just go get yourself an ohm meter and put it across the terminals and read the damn stuff.
You know what? Even
That's
better,
true.
get an O-scope and put it on the electrical system on the bus and figure out where your interference is coming from.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, okay.
Look for ripple. Yeah, you're looking at ripple voltage. Yeah,
Yeah.
and all
It could be
alternators produce ripple voltage. They do. But yeah, as far as that, Lewis, I'd say look at any of the catalogs that sell that. They might even tell you what the hell they're rated at.
Because this is 8 ohms, 8.5 ohms, but I don't know what I need on the bus. Like, how do I figure out? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily for the bus. It's just it's for the universal 12-volt system. And I don't know, because I haven't run across that.
That's like back in the day, and we'll take my Mustang, because of the ignition for the coil to the plugs. They had a resistor in there that went from 12 volts to 6 volts. I mean amps, and that was
in the dash, yeah,
in the dash. Right. And it was always funny because guys would put MSD boxes on, they'd hook it up from the outside, and they had the resistor, and they had all kinds of crazy problems because the MSD needed X amount of power, and they had this, and of course they could never figure out, and then they got a bad name because they didn't have that, realize it was built in.
Chrysler's did that too. It was a dropping resistor. Chrysler had the same thing to drop the voltage to the gauges.
And so, they also had that, like I said, going to the points, to the coil.
Well, the ballast resistor. Yeah, resistor. GM did too. I mean, GM didn't use the ballast resistor. They used the resistor wire.
That's what the Ford did, was a resistor
I mean,
wire.
You could switch one for the other if you had to.
And you always look good when you tell them, hey, down there on the left-hand corner underneath the dash, you got to cut that wire out and put a regular wire in. And they look at you like, what do you mean? It's voodoo, But that's why it's probably, when they say universal, that's kind of like going back to your OBD sensor stuff. You're looking for your 5-volt reference, right?
Right.
So that's just probably a universal number where it probably works. It may really only need to be 6, but 8 works, but you can't have 10 or 12. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's why they're all 8.5. You probably can get away with that.
A pretty common load resistor for like turn signals and stuff like that is the 50-watt 6 ohm one. And you can buy those pre-wired and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So this is 20 watts.
8 ohm. Yeah.
8 ohm. Yep.
That's close.
Yeah.
What's a couple ohms among friends, right?
Yeah. Well, what you could end up doing is you could end up drawing so much power through the resistor that it might dim your LEDs, right? It might hurt output.
You'd have to really, I mean, the LED takes 0.7 volts to turn on.
Mm-hmm.
If I got to get my softball jersey, I'll show you, because that was my number in college.
0.7?
0.707, because I was an electronics major. So I made that my number for my.
That's great.
I couldn't put I'll show it to you.
You should have been on an episode of Big Bang Theory.
Oh,
yeah,
great. That's great. Oh, I love that.
Who was Sheldon? I mean, what is Sheldon? What was that guy? It was Bob Newhart, or what's his name? He was the professor. What was that? Mr. Electron or Electro, or the TV show he used to watch? That's
Mr. Wizard. So we took
There's
the
like 21 seasons of that show.
Yeah, there's my name, and that was my number.
I love it.
Awesome.
And they just couldn't put a point on it, but yeah, that's how nerdy electronics engineering students are.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So I have a friend who works in the electronic industry, and his specializes in air gap transformer technology, aka wireless charging.
Yeah,
And he's worked on a lot of like military contracts and stuff over the years. And one of his projects years and years ago, like maybe almost 10 years ago now, was they wanted artillery forward observers to be able to use tablets, basically an iPad, for wind computation, mapping, all that stuff. And then they wanted him to just be able to toss it in his backpack, and no matter how it lands in his backpack, it's charging off of a larger battery pack in his pack. Yeah. And he worked on that a lot. And so it was really interesting. Right when wireless charging was becoming like the big thing for cell phones and mobile devices, I was already kind of up to speed on it. And one of my favorite sayings that he ever give me was, you can have a box the size of a washing machine in your basement and run your entire house wirelessly. However, because of the inefficiencies of transferring power through the air with an air gap transformer, it'll be glowing bright red and your house will be drawing more than a steel mill.
Yeah.
Right.
Free heat.
Right.
You know, and that's the real fun part of engineering, is when you get to product test and life cycle test stuff, because you get to play with it in real world situations before it's out there. That was what I always had the most fun with.
Right.
Yeah. There's a company called Hevo. Jeremy McCool is the founder, and he's working on wireless automotive, wireless charging for automotive. So like fleet applications, right? Where these fleet owners are like, hey, the thing just stopped working. I thought it was plugged in, and now I've come back the next morning and my fleet vehicle's not charged, so now I'm behind schedule, or some component has gone out, like a physical component's gone out that I have to replace. So there's wireless charging is, I think, if it can be done, as a great solution for automotive, and I know that there's people working on it. So I think it's a great way to go.
They said that the Leaf is the cheapest EV.
That's what okay. Then to Lewis's question earlier, if all gasoline vehicles go away tomorrow, I'm going to get myself a Leaf.
Hey, there you go, the Leaf.
And and here's the thing: I'm not knocking the industry. I work in the industry, but we covered new model releases for Automoblog all the time. We just covered the Lincoln Nautilus, which was just announced. Like entry level Lincoln, $50,000, top end $70,000, right? And granted, that's a Lincoln, that's higher end, but vehicles today, just even base models, are expensive.
Oh, it's ridiculous on all that stuff.
So expensive.
Just remember, you take this back, you go, you do a 5-year thing, I guess. And a car payment used to be $300.
Right.
And then it got to $500. Well, now you can't even touch anything for $800.
Right.
Yeah.
Your car payment is $800. And if you're halfway stupid about it because you do the rollover or you get rid of something before it's paid, you're paying $1,000 for a car. I can't even tell you how many kids I know or how many people, my customers, and they're like, I said, that's a nice car. What's your payment? $1,200. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
You're talking about airmen right now, because you go into an Air Force base and people say, oh my God, military's paid too much. Because you go past the airmen's quarters and all these brand new cars out there.
Yeah. And then you find out that's all they own.
Yeah.
That's all
right.
Yeah. Well, that's always been the joke, right? Join the infantry so you can finance a Corvette.
Yes.
But this is what I was looking at. This they say move over Tesla truck, but they have this Chinese 6x6. Let's see if I can.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that before. I don't.
Oh my God, that's a redhead there. Hold on, let me get out of here.
Let's see that.
Yeah, save her for later.
Yeah, we can't. But
that's the after
11 o'clock hour.
That's 6x6.
Oh, geez, look at that. Do you have
Extra
the
wheels to
Matchbox
carry the
version
batteries.
yet, Brian?
Huh?
Do you have the Matchbox version yet?
No, but I do have a Mercedes version of that. That Mercedes one. I don't know where it
I'm
went,
sure
but
Isaac
that's
will have it before long.
I wonder
Yeah.
what tires cost for that thing.
Yeah.
Hey, and you know what? I was in the shop. But speaking of tires, we were talking about how the electric cars, with their special tires, and Teslas, they have that inner foam thing, low rolling existent. You're not
Resistant.
supposed to
Yep.
plug them.
Mhm.
So I was watching this guy, and he's over there. And he is just like a junkyard dog, tearing and biting and grunting. And I was like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" He goes, "I'm taking out the inner liner." So he actually pulled out a section of that, plugged the tire, and then was trying to glue it all back together.
God.
Oh, God. Oh.
That doesn't sound like an industry approved repair.
No, it doesn't.
Well, they used to get mad at me, and this
Right.
is why because a car would come in and I would fail it for a plugged tire. And they would say, "Why are you failing this?" And I said, "Well, it's no longer speed rated."
Right.
And they said, "What do you mean it's not speed rated?" I said, "Well, it has a hole in it and it's been plugged."
Yeah.
Dude, it's not a sealed unit. It's not a fixed sealed tire.
Continuous.
Yeah, it's got a plug in it. It has a hole. You can't.
Unmolested.
So you want me to approve this tire, and the guy goes out and does 149, 140, 160 miles an hour. That tire's not rated. That tire has no speed ability. And that's why I'm still dumbfounded that they let plug tires on the road, because they're no longer speed rated.
Right.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, there's, and I think what you're getting at, Brian, is there's a disconnect between, what manufacturers are doing and what technicians have to work with, and then salespeople in dealerships, like how do they properly present, the vehicle to a customer? That's a huge discussion right now in automotive retail, because I think that a lot of, I think a lot of technicians and shop owners and service advisors, they can't keep up with it,
And Ford's getting a lot of egg on their face over their
Right.
electric truck with the towing
Right.
capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it, and again, and so at the dealership level, I started at a Ford dealership. That was how I got into the automotive business. And adaptive cruise control was a new thing at the time, and only Lincolns had it. And none of our customers wanted to use it because they were terrified of it. You figure the average Lincoln buyer was, in their 60s, so cruise control was fine, but adaptive cruise control was something they were very, very resistant to. So, topic for another time, but, there when I worked for so then I was later in my career, I was in dealer training for Ford, and then I worked for Chevy on Chevy's national truck team. And one of the number one complaints that we would field in my work with Chevy and in some of the work I did with Ford at the dealer level was that the salespeople of the dealership did not understand GVWR, GCWR, towing, and payload capacity. And so we would, and my role with Chevy was much more consumer facing. So they would say, I bought, and this was at the time, so this was 2016, 2017 when I was doing this, but they'd say, yeah, my dealer sold me a 6.0 gas 2500, said it would tow my trailer. Okay, what do you have? And they would rattle off something. I'm like, oh no, you definitely needed a diesel. You definitely needed the 6.6, or with your payload capacity, you should have jumped up to a 3,500. It probably wouldn't have cost you any more. And so one of the complaints that we would field is that, the salespeople were not knowledgeable on the capability of these trucks. So with stuff like the Lightning, and this goes back to what we were talking about before with range and performance and how payload affects things and stuff, I'm not picking on dealerships, but this is a very real conversation that is happening in automotive retail right now. Tyler, if you come in to buy a Ford Lightning and I say, yeah, it can go all this far, and I'm giving you the headline version, I'm giving you the PR version,
Right.
You might be shocked, when you hitch up your boat, you know, and you encounter a headwind, you're like, oh my goodness, Carl lied to me. You're like, he
Right.
misrepresented the product.
Right.
So now that affects consumer adoption for EVs. So the dealership model, as far as sales goes, has got to change, where you have to be transparent and you would have to say literally verbatim, you know, Tyler, I know that you're interested in the Ford Lightning. Let me give you the spec sheet, but let me give you some clarification to this.
Yeah,
So
but
that
you know the only problem with that, Carl, and I deal with this day in and day out.
Mhm.
And this goes back. Me and Rave talked about it. Is that it goes in one ear and out the other because they do not understand. They do not want to understand or read the instructions on
right.
that. I had a shop today. They wanted something simple to read, tire depth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have a really nice one, but they want it digital, a digital gauge.
Right.
I walked in there and the guy goes, "How do you use this?"
And why is it in these funny 32s? What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah,
Right.
and he's like, "We used to just write down like 8, you know,
Well,
and you know." And we would write that, and I said, "Okay, well, click the button, and then there's the inches. See, there's your 0.8 right there. You know, 8 point is your 0.8 right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you know, there. The other one was in 30 seconds. It said,
right, which is standard in the trucking industry.
Yeah.
Well, that's standard. That's actually standard
It's
in general.
the car
like
industry
for Maryland
too.
State Inspection, you know, they want it in 30 seconds. You know,
That's right.
And
that's right.
So I said here, and you know, so I showed him, and he's like, "Wow," and I'm like, "Dude, how do you? I mean, like, does your mother still tie your shoes?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I picked one up in. I got a couple of them. I probably have four or five of them. But I picked one up once in Walmart. It was, it looked interesting because it was digital, and it was like, I don't know, $8. So I said, let me take this and see. And I tell you, that thing works like a charm.
Yeah.
You just slide the pintle in and out, and it just gives you a digital readout. I could teach a kid to use it.
So, but that's the only problem that, you explain. I do the same thing about the difference in our scanners.
Sure.
A guy's like, I want a scanner. Okay, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for just in-out code reading? Are you looking for diagnostic? Are you looking for, initializing components? I mean, what are you
want to be able to reprogram tire sensors?
Yeah, or that's it. They'll buy a scanner and say, "Hey, there's something I can't program tire sensor." Well, that's a whole different scanner.
Yeah, right.
And of course, the bottom line, the only thing that catches their ear is the price.
Yeah.
So when you start out and say, "Well, this one is $39.95, but this one is $69.95," they've gone right back to the $39.95.
Regardless of what it does.
See, that's easy, Brian. You just tell them, listen, I'll give you a number of prices, and just remember that as the price goes up, so does the capability of the scanner. So if you tell me what you want to do, I give you the price, and then, that's it. You can't go down because you're not going to have you're not going to have everything you need.
Right.
So, like I said, that's the only problem. And it's sad. It's sad, especially, I knew a lot of great car salesmen guys. I knew a lot of really good, I don't want to use the word, car salesmen, but they were very honest, and they would go to the nth degree in explaining. And sure enough, like you just said, well, you lied to me. And I'm like, dude, how did that guy lie to you? Because now you're trying to pull a 53-footer trailer behind you with everything that you own on it to go to Myrtle Beach. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
yeah, they're definitely.
We'll never get over that.
You're the funny thing when we cover some of this stuff for Automoblog, like, how to get the most miles out of your vehicle. So if you don't want to buy a vehicle, how do you take your current vehicle now and, how do you stretch it for every last dollar? And one of the things that always comes up is read your owner's manual, take it out of the plastic. You would be surprised.
That's all.
Yeah. How much really good information is in there. But that comes up with the advanced safety system. So the automatic emergency braking and the blind spot detection. Well, all that stuff is in the owner's manual. All that stuff is written in the owner's manual, it's whether or not customers read that, you know. So
unless you're in a Toyota and you're looking for the manual for the engine because you're just curious, and you've got this inch thick booklet in there telling you about the air conditioning, the heating system, the heated seats, automatic mirrors, not a damn thing in there about the motor.
right.
And you get really frustrated when you're trying to find out what.
Yeah, it's true.
No,
That's
it
why
is
you
true.
read them.
It
You
is
don't
true.
buy them.
Hey guys, I got to jump ship.
Hey, Lewis.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Hello,
about
Lewis.
to do the same, but I just wanted to bring
Likewise,
one more
yeah.
interesting point.
Go ahead, Tyler. Yeah.
Someone just shared a post on my feed not too long ago, and apparently now this chat GPT thing is, AI generated text is becoming huge, right? So Snapchat apparently just adopted some form of AI internet synced bot, right? And you can ask it questions like Siri or Google or whatever. And I was on a Power Stroke mechanics page, and this guy was asking Snapchat questions about his 6.0 Power Stroke. What's my preferred fuel pressure? What are these different parameters? And it was actually giving out good information. So he posted this as a screenshot in the Facebook group, and my reply to that was, "Goodbye, YouTube certified mechanic. Hello, AI certified mechanic."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I had a phone call the other day. I was doing some financial stuff, and I called this agency, and the nice young girl that gave me the menu options asked me what I want to inquire about, and it took a few minutes, and then I realized I was talking to a bot.
Yep.
It was so freaking good. So then I started playing around with it. I did because I had to see for myself once I realized what was going on.
Now you have a
Right.
sexual harassment letter in the mail.
Well, no, it wasn't that bad.
Was it a redhead? Did you at least ask if it was a redhead?
Yeah, I didn't go that far. No, but what I did is I said something out of the norm that didn't pertain to what we were talking about.
Right.
I said in the form of a sentence. And you want to know something? She answered me with a sentence that pertained back to what I said.
Wow.
And I said,
Wow.
damn, that's freaking good.
That is
And
good.
then I said, but I'm going to figure out how to beat it. And I kept asking the same question that didn't pertain to what she was programmed for. And it took about 4 times. And then she said, well, let me see if I can find you, someone who can help you. And then I got to a real person. I was like, son of a bitch, man. I was shocked. I was very shocked. And I was kind of impressed.
Hey,
But now
AIs
they're
are
gonna-
getting better and better.
Yeah.
Now
They
they're
are.
going to take all this AI stuff and they're going to combine it with the auto drive, right? And a lot of people don't know this. In the airline industry, something like 3 times out of 4, it's not your pilot landing the plane.
Yeah.
The
I've heard
plane
that.
is the plane is landing itself, and he's literally just there watching the gauges and making sure the computer
There's a
doesn't
lot
freak
of
out.
that. There's a lot of. There's
Yeah.
a lot more in that. There's a lot of it. I got
Yeah.
a couple buddies who are pilots, and they're just. It's almost like in the movie Airport or Airplane with the blow up air. With the I mean, that is it right there, dude.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Just make sure you have that
Wasn't it-
fuel valve handy.
Wasn't that the problem with those newer planes that were crashing like a year or two ago that on the landing?
767.
Yeah, wasn't it on the landing? The computer would kind of go wonky, and when the pilot
Yeah.
would take over, it was in the wrong mode or something, and
Yeah,
I
it had
wanted to fight back.
It had a
yeah,
problem-
it was trying to
it had
fight
a
back
problem
or something.
relinquishing control.
I think it's the MCAS system is what that was on the 737 MAX, where the design of the plane, it was leaned forward and the wings were set down lower and back. So to compensate for that, they developed that MCAS software system. I think that's what caused the crashes, the 737 MAX. There's been a couple of really good documentaries about it. That recently have come out, but yeah, I think it was a software program that would basically, as I understand it, tilt the nose forward, and there was no way to get it back.
I want to
Yeah.
know when we're going to see the tool trucks that drive themselves and go to the stop instead of going to. They don't stop at
Instead of
Target.
going to lunch,
They don't go to Target. They go
hours.
to the repair shops.
Well, eventually, actually, we have that. It's called the app. All you gotta do is get on the app, and you can do all your business, and it's going to eventually eliminate me. So
Yeah, right.
Well, the app can't walk into the shop and grab my brokens.
No.
Yep.
well, they want you to. I mean, if you don't have a guy, they and I really don't want to make it too loud, but a few places when I call and say, "Hey, I got brokens," give them the part number, they just send them to me, and they don't even ask for the brokens. So
Wow.
Yeah, it used to be they'd send you a return label, but a lot of times, like ratchet rebuild kits and simple stuff like that, if you legitimately don't have a Snap-on or a Matco guy in your area, and you call the company, they'll just take care of you.
Yeah, or Mac or Cornwell.
Yeah.
I just my ratchet program trade-in I just did. I'm waiting for a few repair kits. So
yeah,
it's incredible. But
I saw someone selling it was I can't remember what brand it was. It was either Matco or Snap-on, but the tool truck plastic tackle box containers for all your repair parts and stuff. The guy had a stack of them on Facebook Marketplace listed for sale, and you could see the name brand right on the front. And he wanted it was absurd. It was like $50 a container, so it was like a stack of 5 for $250 or something. And I messaged him. I said, that better be full of the repair parts.
Yeah. Huh.
Did he get back to you?
No, he ignored my message.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to call it a night. It's 11 o'clock.
Okay, Tyler.
Likewise for me. Always a pleasure to be back on with you, gentlemen. Tyler, great to hear more of your story and the work you're doing, and to get caught. I learned a lot, man. Thanks. So
yeah. Oh, I did want to say, if you're interested in the whole battery composition discussion, that YouTube channel I shared in the private chat there, Will Prowse.
Yeah,
it's DIY solar with Will Prowse, but he dives a lot into battery composition and safety factors and all that kind of stuff too. He's a very knowledgeable guy.
Nice. I'm gonna bookmark it right now. So, gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to come on and be part of the show again. And Ray, I will see you Sunday, same time.
Same time, same. Yeah, you got it.
All right, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Carl.
Looking forward to it, Carl.
You bet. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
Good night.
Take care.
You almost said same bat channel, and
Yeah.
that wouldn't be right.
Right.
So I'm going to be calling it quits because my wife is setting up our booth, and I got out of it because of the show. So
lucky you.
There you go.
Yes, I was.
Using us as an excuse, Papa Squirrel. That's not good. This ain't the right crowd to hang around for that.
Yeah.
No, I just saw a video on Facebook not too long ago. It was a girl sitting in the passenger seat, and she's talking to her man, and she goes, "I don't trust any of your friends." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Let me show you." She dials one of his best friends and says, "Hey, have you seen whatever his name was, Josh? Have you seen Josh today?" He goes, "Oh yeah, he's here at my house right now. Why? What's up?" and she just looks at him and she's like, "Oh, can I talk to him?" He's like, "Oh, I think he's using the bathroom or something. I'll tell him to call you."
That's great. That's great.
That's the kind of friends you need to have.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
I had a buddy that he was using me as an excuse when he came down, and it's like I'm in the shower and you never hear the phone ring, but I heard the phone ring, so I get out, go over and get the shower and pick up, and they said, "Hey," and I think her name was Karen. Can't remember. This was years ago. And I was like, "Oh yeah, hey, what's up?" She goes, "Oh, can I talk to Mike?" And I said, "Well, he's not here." "Well, what about blah?" I said, "I haven't seen Mike since you guys got married, And she goes, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." So then it was like after he got everything thrown out of the house and he was down, he walks up to me and goes, why couldn't you just tell me, say that I was in the bathroom or something?" I was like, "Dude, you don't take a trip and not let me know. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, you should at least let your alibi know.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, if you're going to use me, at least let me know.
Right.
I
Like
mean,
we were playing catch in the park with your kids, right?
yeah, I mean, it's like crazy.
So look, if you're going to use me, don't abuse me.
Right.
No, that's like today I get a phone call from one of my customers, and he's like, "Hey, where the hell are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you haven't brought me my tool." And I said, "What are you talking about, dude?" And he goes, "Yesterday." I said, "Yeah, yesterday. I told you I had this on the truck, and I sent you the picture of what I had, and you wrote back, okay." That doesn't mean like, are you going to bring it to me?
Yeah, right.
I mean, and so I get there. I said, I'll squeeze you in. So I went down, dropped it off, and he's like, "Oh, thanks for coming. I really was looking." He goes, "I think it's because you just don't know my." He goes, "We don't speak very good English together." You know, he's a Spanish guy, but I'm like you don't understand. I was like, dude, how
So,
in the world
and then
does
you
say
said-
okay means can
Right.
I bring? You know,
Yeah.
so you didn't even ask the price. I mean,
Yeah. So now this is a teachable moment, right? You can
Yeah.
tell him, be like, okay, I buy ASAP.
yeah. So maybe that's half my problem. When they say okay, that means just go ahead and sell it to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Put it on their account, man.
yeah, just put it on the account.
Yeah.
When
That's
I
when you reply, okay, credit or truck account.
Yeah.
Right.
when I
I stay away from the
cash.
credit. That credit
Yeah.
thing is so screwed up now, dude.
Yeah. Or cash or truck account. There you go.
That's
when I get fired up or in a mood, my sister says that she has to translate because I my mouth and my brain don't connect, especially when I'm pissed off and things
Yeah.
start coming out. And she's like, "I know exactly what you're saying," and then she'll have to translate to whoever. So he's angry. Well, yeah, that's obvious. Well, but this is what he's trying to say. He's not trying to be the jerk he sounds like he is. He's trying to be this type of jerk.
The jerk that he really is.
Yeah.
Right.
uh
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to call it quits.
all right,
All right,
Tyler.
Tyler.
Good seeing you.
Take
See you
care.
all
Hey,
later.
Tyler.
See ya.
See ya. Good night.
So I was going through some papers in the cabinet in the garage tonight, and what I found.
Wow.
Gentleman manual.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a hydraulic brake bleeding sequence
Yep,
from
I remember that.
65 to 96. So you just you look up the car, and then it tells you what the bleed sequence is, because here's Audi, all models. Look at that. 4,000, 5,000 and Quattro. Right rear, left rear, right front, left front. Before bleeding, push brake pedal,
Say that on
pressure
all of them.
regulator lever towards rear axle. So that was all that specific, OEM stuff that's it's cool. I'm always finding stuff that I squirreled away somewhere. I'm like, and I'm
You got
probably had it since the 90s. But
yeah, that stuff. I have a hard time. I've gone through so much, and I got a stack of, and I hate to throw it away.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, "Why you still have it?" Because you can find it on. Supposedly, you can find it online.
I'd rather
But-
leaf through it on my desk. Just
Yeah, I'd rather because I keep telling people I have a problem when I get online.
yeah, I know.
So there's always a redhead with big
Redheads.
boobs that show
Right.
up. So.
Or a roast beef sandwich. Well, maybe it's a redhead with roast beef. You never
Yeah,
know.
or some type of some type of jeez.
Yeah.
Sounds
like
it's food related, some type of
dessert.
No.
Redhead
Entree?
showing her,
Red velvet cake.
redhead showing her beef curtains.
We gotta send a team over to Keith's house to clean up his office.
I've actually have been cleaning some of it up, just throwing stuff away.
Throwing stuff away.
Yeah, there's just too much crap back there.
Yeah, well, you
The
don't need to
office
tell
is half
me.
the size. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that thing?
Oh, this is it. Actually, that's it.
Very
My
nice-
heater.
Oh, it's very nicely stacked.
Well,
Yeah.
it's sitting there because I was want to take it out to my storage unit and bring my fan. I left my fan and
Switching
then
for the seasons already. He's going for
yeah. I
HC.
mean, it's gonna be 94 tomorrow.
What?
Wow, really?
It was 80. It was 87, 88 today or something.
Wow.
It was crazy today.
Boy, it wasn't that warm here.
Yeah. And
So this
I
week,
got to do the AC service on the old tool truck.
I had to do a service on my wife's car because she told me the other day she went out with my daughter and they were driving. They used the AC, of course. It was warm, and then when they stopped at a light, the car was. She said it felt like it had a heartbeat.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, maybe it's because I used the air conditioner. I'm like, no, it shouldn't be. She goes, but the car felt like it had a heartbeat, like it was pulsing. I'm like, wow. So I took it out the next day, and when it was cold, it was
This
fine.
was a cruise, right?
The cruise, yeah. As soon as it warmed up and I stopped at a light, I could feel it. The car was surging, and that was what she felt as a heartbeat. So I thought, okay, hopefully it's not the transmission. So I popped it in neutral, and it lessened, but it didn't go away. I'm like, okay, it's engine management. We got something going on. It's either fuel, air,
Vacuum.
So I scanned it, and man, I got some wacky information. I got like fuel trims that were like, what were they like? Short-term fuel trim was like 10, and long-term was like 30. Like that's like maxed out. Map sensor map. What the hell was the map? Was it 20, 26 pass? I'm like, and in the scanner, I looked. I had the scanner gave me the I forget what they call it, the repair solution, and it was telling me it's 90% of the people fixed this. It was a bad fuel injector. I'm like, well, if an injector dropped out, yeah, it would starve and the engine wouldn't run right. But I'm looking more towards like a massive vacuum leak, because it's adding fuel like crazy. I mean, it's like, so I check, I open the hood and I go and I look and I'm like, okay, well, and one of the other things they said was it could be check the air filter, for a vacuum leak. I found out that Fords had done this. When they had a cone filter, they would loosen, but the air filter was fine. It ended up being, and I posted this today, this little baby right here.
The valve cover, the PCV.
Yeah, right here.
Yep.
The PCV.
Yeah, I did that on my daughter's car.
Now, I put this one on the car in.
That's what I thought. It wasn't that long ago. 2019.
Oh,
really? That long ago? Wow.
It's so stupid. You have to replace the whole valve cover. You can't just replace the PCV.
I got oil on my hand. It was 4 years ago, but and 24,000 miles. I mean, that shows you, the car doesn't get driven a lot. So it's only like 6,000 a year.
Was that what's that, help, or was that a aftermarket?
No. I put a GM part on that car,
and
I bought another GM part today. So what happened was when I was under the hood, everything was copacetic, but on top of that valve cover, there's another plate that you pop off to get at the coil packs. And that's when you can see that PCV, which was it. They've had faults with that since forever. That's why the first one was bad. So as soon as I took that other cover off, I could hear the vacuum
sucking in. Yeah.
And I put my finger over it, and the motor smoothed out a little bit. I'm like, you rotten so and so.
Yep, that's the same thing that happened in my daughter's car.
Yep.
You got to change that. You got to change that whole thing. Is that?
Yeah, pain in the ass.
It's like contained in the valve cover.
Yeah.
Or
a lot of cars are that way now.
It looks like it could pop out because it's got a little clips on it. It's like you see those welding. Yeah, take it apart. See what it looks like.
I'm going to take this one apart. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, Brian, this was the reason that I bought those the e-torque sockets was to do this job back in 2019.
Yeah.
So, but it just goes to show, I was trying to explain to my wife how, now you deal with the scanners. A lot of guys would have been changing fuel injectors.
Yeah.
It's like it didn't need fuel injectors, didn't need that at all.
Yeah.
So this goes back even to like the scanner reading. And this is what drives me crazy is because, I'll sell a guy a scanner and then next week I walk in, he goes, this scanner's no good.
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, what do you mean the scanner's no good? He goes, well, it told me what was wrong, and I replaced that, and that wasn't the problem.
Yeah,
and I was like, no, that's not what a scanner does. He goes, well, I want a scanner that tells me the problem so I can fix it. And I said, well, you got to be able to read the scanner.
Yeah.
The reason why the O2 sensor light came on was it because it was lean, or was it rich, or was it, the heating element? But it went past its limit. So then that's why you would know. Now, yeah, it could be a bad O2 sensor, but when you look at that and say, oh, it was trying to lean itself out and it kept going and it pulled it. So you got to fight, you take that information and move on to the next.
Well, if it was a bad O2 sensor, wouldn't you just get that code for O2 sensor? And not
you would get, you want to get all the other stuff, but you got to look at the other stuff. I mean, you got to, like I said, what Ray was doing was, looking at trim low, trim feet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The fuel trim was telling the story. It's that's not a bad injector. That's like a massive air leak.
It was trying to make up for the air leak. So it was trying to correct the problem.
It's almost like there was unmetered air, and then the computer was trying to compensate. So again, you have to interpolate the data, and just not jump at it. So it's,
well, you were talking about that maybe a month ago on your radio show. As far as people will get the codes and they'll go with what they look up or what the code's saying, like an O2 sensor, or in this case, the injector. And you were talking about, you've got to look at the live data. You've got to pull data out and start looking. I don't know if you guys have seen the YouTube channel, The Car Wizard, but I've started watching his stuff a while back, and more so I started watching it because of the exotics that he works on, but I've noticed on a few things, like he's kind of talked about that and showed there's been an episode or two where he showed it gave a code, and if you just go off of the code, you're going to change this and that, but that's not the problem. And he pulled up on a screen the diagnostics and what he looked for and why it wasn't the other thing.
Yeah.
And it was just the live data, and it happened to be, I think it was a fuel issue, but I think it ended up being an issue with either the regulator or the pump, and the pump wasn't. It was an output issue, is what it was.
Right. I will show you what I was looking at. Boink. Okay, this is the freeze frame data. So it was a PO 171, system 2 lean, bank 1. Closed loop, low, calculated low was about right. Temp, but here it is. Short-term fuel trim, 32.8, long-term 34.4. That's about the max that the system can deliver. And that was kind of the tip-off right there.
It was dumping fuel into the system to catch up with the leak.
So the repair data tells me, it's a bad fuel injector. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's
so not. What should those numbers be usually? Short term and long term?
It should be close to, it'll bounce between 3.2, 0, short term.
It's all the way. I mean, that's.
Let me see here. I have
after.
Oh no, these are just the codes. I thought I had some other data saved, but I didn't.
See, like our scanner. What type of scanner was that from?
That's what I was gonna ask.
It's actually a Zurich, but it's a Nova. Nova is the.
Okay. Because like on ours, see next to that number, it will give you what it should be or the ideal range.
Oh, that's nice.
It'll give you a range.
That's good. Yeah, they're all a little different. They all do little different things. Yeah.
And like I said, that's a lot of guys. I mean, that's why a lot of guys, some guys, like you, Ray, doing it long enough and around, you already know ideally what it should be right around.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, and then when you see something like that, you're already, you know, okay, well, I got way too much fuel, and you can, you know, move along. See, a lot of guys, you know,
I know,
won't take the time to, okay, we'll see that number,
And like, oh, okay.
and they'll say, oh, okay, right, instead of looking to see what it's supposed to be.
It's
that's
not
why
100.
that's why I tell people, guy will get a new scanner. Hey, I got this, and I'll tell them, you know what? Don't wait till there's a car with a problem. Hook it up to your car that's running right.
Well, that's what we used to do at the dealership. We would get a new car come in, a new model year, new car, and we would hook it up, and we would hit the print button.
Yeah.
And we would print everything coming out of that, anything and everything, every reading that we can get.
Yep.
And the reason why is because when you got one in and you were like, well, what is that supposed to be? Or what is it how it should look?
Yeah.
Then we had, you know, what it should look like.
Right.
And, you know, you could, I thought the guy that I worked with, Rich, super guy. And the first time I was like, what are you doing, dude? Because, you know, he's over just the printer's just going crazy, you know. And he's like, well, this way, when we have a problem, you have a known good car.
Right.
And dude, that's very similar to what we have a sensor box on our scanner that you can buy. And actually you can lie to the computer. Because it will show what a good pattern is, or what a good whatever the wave signal is, and you can actually take that out and put it in to overlap what you have.
That's why a site like IATN is good, because a lot of guys save waveforms. There's guys that kind of collect them, and they can show you what a good waveform is for an O2 sensor, for an upstream or downstream O2 sensor, or you know, stuff like that. And you know, like even for a wheel speed sensor, you want to look, it's frequency based. You can look at that, look at the waveform. So there's like libraries of waveforms you can look at to compare, but you can create your own.
Right.
You know,
and then, like I said, that sensor box, then you could take that pattern, the good pattern, and then and overlap that into overlay it into yours. And if the car thinks it's now running, before you replace something, you can actually, you know, bring it.
It was really funny because the same time I was diagnosing this, I drove the Mazda to the radio station Sunday. On the way home, boom, the check engine light came on. I'm like, what the hell? Now I had a continuing code with that car because it needs a cat. I have an aftermarket cat in it, and I guess it's led its life. So to make it every year, I was just trying to make it pass emissions, you know, just to get the sticker. And last year I couldn't get the light out. So what I had to do is I put a cheater, a bung in the, you know, to space the O2 sensor out. Right.
Oh yeah.
So it ends up, I put the scanner on and I saw, wow, it was a, I got a different code. It was an air intake, solenoid code. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I remembered a few years ago, I had a problem with this part, and Joe was still working at Standard Motors at the time. And he brought me one that was, the ports were a little different, but it was out of a Mitsubishi, but it worked. And I put it in the car and it was cool. And I noticed lately that I heard that thing hissing a little. It's got a vent on it. I said, it shouldn't be hissing, but its car's running fine, so leave it. So I had the old one, the original one, I threw it in a pocket in the door, you know, and I said, let me just try something. So I went out and I put the old one in, and I checked the other code I had was my downstream O2 sensor. I was looking at live data. It was like 0 volts. And it red flagged it. I'm like, well, I know it's 0 volts because it's not in the stream, you know? So again, knowing what you're looking at, like somebody else would say, oh, you need an O2 sensor. No, the O2 sensor is probably fine. It's just not in the gas stream because I put that cheater in there. So like, again, it's all, you know, the data's there. You got to learn how to read it and interpolate it. And even the good guys, I don't consider myself one of the good guys. One of the good guys, you know, like Joe, even they get confused sometimes by something because you don't know the car.
I found some German stuff. I use it on the tool truck.
Yeah.
It's a spray to clean the cat out.
Oh, cool.
and it works really good. And
Nice.
it's for deaf and cats.
I used that guaranteed to pass one time.
Yeah, that's just a whole bunch of rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, 1 year it worked, and then it didn't the next time. This is something funny. Talking about additives. When I had that caddy, when I was down in North Carolina, the CTS, I noticed, I think I told you, when I would use the windshield washers, it smelled like Scope mouthwash.
Yeah.
That scented washer fluid. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now with this Mazda, I kind of switched it and the FJ in the front of the house, and it's under a tree. So now it's getting sap on everything already. So, to clean off the windshield is a pain in the ass. So I was playing with the Mazda the other day, and I had to add washer fluid, but I added about a quart of vinegar because vinegar is really good to clean the windows. And sure enough, we're driving to car food shopping yesterday, and I washed the windows, and I smelled vinegar. My wife said, it's like the car has a douche, it's like fucking Massengill. I said, yeah, I put in Massengill washer fluid, hon. But now you know what? I'm gonna go and buy a bottle of I'm gonna buy the store brand mouthwash, and I'm gonna dump some in the washer because what's it gonna do? It can't hurt the windshield. I mean, I'm just see if I smell Scope.
I can't remember what the German stuff was, but it was God, what was that stuff called? But it was, for cleaning windshield, melting ice,
right?
And man, that stuff was like
de-icer.
Yeah, it was so toxic, man. You sprayed that stuff. You want to talk about getting a buzz? I mean, you got
liquid heat.
It was incredible, but it would melt anything on the windshield. It was, Autobahn stuff, German stuff. It was $1 million.
Of course it was.
And that was 20 years ago. I could only imagine what the cost was today. You had to keep it in it was actually, I think, in a metal can because it would soften up the plastic. That's the blue, but they have it in a gold color.
The other thing I have, it says Autobahn.
It's that Autobahn. Yeah, that was stuff.
Solvent. This is from the 80s.
Yeah. Yep. I have a whole bunch of that still, but the stuff that was the high pressure stuff was in
what's it taste like?
It was a gold color. And actually, I don't know. I'll have to look. I think I have the Porsche stuff. We used to pour. Actually, it was and with the windshield washer, it was a scented stuff that we poured in.
Okay.
And that was 20 some years ago when we used to do that.
Cool. So, were you standing close to the barbecue or something yesterday?
No, that's the sun from the day, man. It was.
Yeah,
I'm working on my son, dude.
You're red.
He's out there tanning.
Yeah, man. My arm. I tell you, I'm.
Nice.
I'm gonna have one hell of a tan. I should.
Yeah.
Working on
it.
I've got a question. Back to the scanners. Is there one a small one handheld or a little bigger than handheld that like tablet size that will pull the data on a OBD1?
No.
Actually, you know what, Isaac? One of the ones I have in my arsenal that I really like using, it's called Blue Driver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like right there you go. There's
I have that.
Yeah. Count the flashes.
It's just a little plastic square that you plug into the ALDL port, and you have an app on your phone, and it does have OBD1.
Actually,
let's do it. Translates the flashes.
No, actually, hold on.
Let me see. It actually.
With the issue I was having with the Honda,
this actually gives you, which is kind of crazy. It actually gives you mode 6, which a lot of your scanners won't give you mode 6. Mm-hmm. But I think this does OBD1. Let me see. You're looking for an older car, obviously.
Well, with the Honda, when I was having that problem before, and I went through everything, and I've changed the computer, and it's working fine now, but the old computer never put a code, and I hopped it with the paper clip, and it never had any codes in it.
Yeah.
And I was curious if there was a way to pull live data. I still have the old computer. If there was a way to pull live data, it would give me stuff to look at and see.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and you know, you're going to find, even with these scanners, when you go into the different cars, sometimes you'll see there'll be like the Cruise, Chevy has an advanced setting, or Toyota has some of them have advanced settings you can get into, and some don't. Yeah. So, you know, you may not have the data available. It may not be available for you to look at, you know, just because you want to see it. So,
I have an OBD2. I think it's an Innova, and it'll pretty much everything that I've used it on, it'll pull up live data.
I've used Innova. I've had a couple of them, and I kind of like the brand. It's a good brand.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about it. It's been good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an older one. I got it. God, how long have I had it? I think I got it back in at least 08. So it's, you know, it's probably time to upgrade.
You see, the reason I upgrade, because they'll add features like on Blue Driver, it has a Mode 6 feature, which is great. Not all scanners have that. On the new Innova that I have, it actually does ABS. You can do an ABS bleed, and it'll do all sensor scans and module scans. So again, you know, they just upgrade their inputs. What do you got, Brian?
Well, this one here, I thought this one was actually OBD2 and ABS.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, this was called a Body Man's scanner because it had OBD2 and ABS. I thought this one, there's another one that has adapters to go into OBD1.
Okay.
And a lot of your big scanners or bigger scanners, OBD1's in there. You just have to buy the adapters. Right. That's why, actually, I was just in a shop and a new guy took over the place, and he grabbed the box and it was like, 2.5 inches of dust on top of the box. Yeah. And he's like, open it up, and it had all these adapters. And he goes, do we use this? And the other guy goes, no. So he took it and threw it in the trash can.
Right.
And I was like, those are your OBD1 connectors. And he goes, what's that?
Right. Yeah. Hey, I'll go over there and I got a Tech 1.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know, that's the early.
And the only time, there's only a few times, especially like early 90s, where you actually still had to use OBD1 connectors. Toyota was real famous. If you ever open up a Toyota 4Runner or whatever, if you ever looked over on the side where the OBD2 connector was inside, but if you looked under the engine compartment, there was a little cap that said diagnostic. Right. And those were OBD1 plugs. Right. And some of the stuff was still going through that where it wasn't going through on the ABS. I mean, on the OBD2 side. Chrysler had the same thing. If you looked on a Chrysler, you had the OBD2 connector, and then a little further back and under the dash, there was a funny shaped plug, and that was for their OBD1 information. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that this one, if you had the adapters, you could do that, but it's kind of hard to come across that stuff now. Yeah, that's the only problem.
I know.
What are you working? What are you going on? I mean, what are you digging into?
It was the Honda. Oh, remember when I first came on the Honda?
Oh yeah.
I changed the computer and it's working fine. I went through all the grounds and stuff, and I changed the computer and it's working fine. I still have the old one, and it'll still. If I mess around and plug in the old one, it'll run fine, and then all of a sudden it
starts acting up.
Yeah, where it won't run. And I was just curious as far as trying to pull live data off of it, and just something to look at and start tinkering.
Yeah, well, they didn't have that type of. A lot of that stuff wasn't developed like today. Today, like I said, literally today, they get into this is where I wanted to get with Carl, and I forgot the reason why I said, these computers will tell you everything, because it was funny. I was taking these new cars for a ride, on the PDI, and I was going through the gears and revving the old cars up,
and then they told on you.
Yeah. Well, I would get back and I'd go through and I would see a code and I could not erase it. And I was like, man, what is that code? Because I couldn't find it anywhere. That's one of those secret, special codes. So when I went to training, the instructor, I said, hey, I get this code. And he goes, really? And I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, you're bouncing it off the rev limiter. And I was like, yeah, I am. And he's like, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because if something happens and they go in there and look, they'll tell Mr. Customer, oh, you downshifted or you were bouncing it off the rev limiter.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, there's about X amount of those running around with that problem.
Right.
So
that's when you said, come on, man, it's a Porsche. You're supposed to.
Yeah, I was like, man, you're supposed to drive it that way. So that's pretty funny. Actually, we're still live on air. I can't talk about that. So. Well,
oh, come on. I let it fly a couple weeks ago. We were live.
Yeah, I know, but I might run for president one day, so I got to be careful.
Why not? RFK Jr. You see that?
Huh?
RFK Jr.
Jr. is running.
Oh,
and his whole family is like not endorsing him.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, I tell you, all this stuff is so crazy.
And they're saying it's because he's an anti-vaxxer. He was totally anti-vaccine, and they were.
Hey, I love that. You talk about vaccine.
Right.
I love where that one girl says, do you know that if, a kid born today can live to the year to see the year 3000? And the guy,
really?
Yeah, and the guy's like, that's 900 and what? Is that because he was vaccinated? That's what he says in the thing. And that was the funniest. And I understand where she's going because, she's seeing 2023.
Right.
So 80 years, that would be 21.
Right.
But she's automatically around in the 3,000. You know what I'm saying? That's why. And the guy that's doing, he's like, that's 970.
She was an old person. Either.
And he's like, is that because he was vaccinated?
That's our future kids funny. There.
Oh, I know. So
that's what we're going to deal with. That's who's going to be taking care of us.
Yeah.
Speaking of being live, I have to apologize to you guys. My mom's watching, and she's been on me all week. Because when you pulled out the Batmobile last week,
yeah,
my computer froze, but I also was falling asleep with my eyes open. I was so beat.
Oh.
And my mom said, what happened? You froze up. They were talking and you got real quiet. And I said, I froze. And she's going, you know what I'm talking about? I said, yeah, I remember. And she goes, but you didn't do anything. And I said, Mom, to be honest, I was falling asleep with my eyes open.
Yeah.
I said, in fact, when Ray pulled it up and when my computer unfroze, I said I was leaning forward trying to look at it. I said, sometimes I lean forward to really get a good look at what they're showing. I said, I was trying to focus because my eyes went out of focus.
Closed.
Yeah, we've all done that.
She asked me just I think it was yesterday. She asked me a couple times this week. She asked me just yesterday. She goes, "Have you texted Ray and apologized?" I said, "I'll talk." I said, "I promise I'll do it on the show, Mom."
It's fine. Look,
so
I know
Mom,
there's nights I've sat here and I was nodding out.
Yeah,
and I know Brian's done it a few times.
I remember that one time you sent him the text that buzzed.
I was frozen up.
with your head down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that snoring noise was probably from the oil burner too, right? From
the oil
water heater.
burner, yep.
Yeah.
That you had
It
props
happens. It's
on,
late,
that's what
you
it
know?
was.
Sometimes if I don't get my afternoon nap, I take it at night.
Well, Ryan, I sent in my Dollar General cards
did?
for
Yep. Yeah, actually, this one I just got this one. This one is from their Ultra Hots. These are the new ones out at Target, but I get the new Porsche.
Wow, look at that.
Oh, wow. So that's the same car, but we're gonna get is
that was that. And actually, the other hot one with that setup is this one right here, the Chevelle.
Okay,
oh, nice.
Oh yeah, that's
man. I walked into Target today, and they had 6 cases, and they had 4 shippers. And the shippers are the thing that's at the grocery store, the blue box.
Yeah.
So the shippers have 144 cars in them. They have 2 cases in them. And I walked around the corner and I was like, oh, fuck, man, I won't be here I won't be here for a while.
You know way too much about this stuff.
And actually, the lady let me do 2 cases to put them up. Went through, and they were older cases. There wasn't really anything in there. I was kind of pissed. And then when I went for one of the shippers, she was like, "Oh, no more. We're not putting any more out." And she's like rolling away, and I'm like, "Let me wait a minute." So I was like,
"Back here."
They put the stock out for you.
Yeah, I said, "Just let me do it. Sit down.
Put the Target shirt on.
Don't make me bear hug you, lady."
Yeah. So. But I will admit they were older cases.
Well, on a bigger car note, I was doing some research and stuff started popping up now on my feed, and there's this brand of AN fitting and hoses called Evil.
Yeah,
Evil
that's
something.
what I've used.
Yeah,
Amazon has those.
Good prices.
Yep,
good prices, and they put together something I was looking for. It's like a kit. They have like a couple of 180s and a couple 90s and a couple 45s, you know, it's and like 16-foot of hose.
Yeah, that's what I bought.
And it's like $80.
Something like that.
I'm like, okay.
Because I did power steering lines on my 53 Buick. And I converted it all to AN because I have an LS motor. So I had to adapt the LS power steering to the stock box.
I watched, that was the video you sent me.
That's the video I sent, yeah.
And the first thing I realized was, okay, Keith needs someone to hold the camera for him.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That's why, my cousin was doing a website for us and he was trying to get me to do video years ago at the shop. And I said,
it's tough doing it by yourself.
I said, I really can't do that, man. I'm working. He goes, well, why don't you set the camera on a tripod? I said, you know how many times I'm going to kick that freaking tripod and send it across the floor?
Well, the other thing is, the other thing is you set the tripod up and you record everything you do, and then you have to go through and cut out, a whole bunch of it. So now what I'm doing is I'm just videoing what I'm doing.
My buddy who owns a shop, he bought a thing off Amazon. It's a little tabletop tripod, and you put your camera or phone on it, and it follows you. If you move, it turns and follows you.
Yeah,
so it's pretty neat if you're going to move around a little.
So this is what I use.
Okay,
this opens up.
Right.
And it comes down.
Yep.
So you can do that. Yep. And this moves, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you were saying, you got to go through and edit all that. There's a girl here that's local. She has a YouTube channel and she reviews cars and then she does restoring and auto work on these cars.
What's her name?
Sarah Intune.
Yep. Oh,
You've
boy.
seen her?
Yeah, I can tell you. Have you done research on her?
No, I know she's in the same city.
Okay.
I know she has. Oh.
I can send you something later.
We're still alive.
Message me later.
Yeah.
Well, message all of us later because I want
Yeah,
to know about
exactly.
it too.
I want
Okay,
to know
I'll-
now too.
I
But,
thought you were going to talk about that woman driver.
Woman driven. What's her name?
Yeah.
Dora, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
not.
what-
She's not in Arizona, I don't think.
Yeah,
what I
she
was
is.
going
Go
to
ahead.
say,
She is?
what I was going to say is, she, on one of her videos, she was talking about how long it takes. Like it had been a while since she posted something,
Yeah.
and it had to do with how long her post was how long it takes to actually go through, film everything, then edit, then upload it, and it slows down also doing the work on the vehicle if you're doing it that way.
Yeah.
Because you got to go, you can only get so far done.
Yep.
You know, I was working on my car tonight and I'm out there and I'm saying, you know, this would be great video content on how to do these different things. I'm like, but yeah, like, you know, come on, it would slow it down so much. I actually I'm laying out all the stuff for the fuel injection. What do you got there, Brian?
Yep.
Oh, look at that.
No, I
And
haven't
what's
seen
what's
that
her
stuff.
site?
She has it
That's woman
driven, right?
driven.
And on what platform?
Instagram.
Okay.
She's
Where
in
you can find
Arizona
her-
too.
Oh,
Yeah. She's got a Camaro.
It froze.
She's got a Camaro.
Mustang.
The race car version.
Viper.
That's what's there. She's got a Shelby GT350.
Little
She's got a
slow.
Viper.
Wow.
She's got a lot. And actually, I really liked her. I still like her. And I watched a lot of her YouTube stuff until I stumbled across
Her putting an
she's
LS
got
in a Mustang.
The Corolla, whatever.
no. She actually blew her Mustang up, and she had to fight Ford
Yeah.
because she went through a whole process with Ford. I was a little discouraged about that, but I went through and
You're a longtime fan.
no, like I said, I really liked her until I found out that she had a fans only page.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
And she still, I mean, she's like some engineer or something. She said, you know, because I mean the money, I mean, she started out in a garage and she's got a huge shop with all these cars in it. And she said it wasn't from the fans only page, and it kind of turned me off.
Yeah.
But I noticed though that she's really come back strong on Instagram. But
yeah, you never sent me any. You never sent me any of those Instagram links.
Ray, I'm keeping you young at heart. I don't want to get the old ticker worked up.
Sure. Go right to the heart with the old guy, right? That's good.
Go here. Let me send Ray something there.
Well, Bogey's shop is in Arizona.
Huh?
Bogey's
it?
her shop.
Yeah.
She's in Scottsdale. At least when the last I saw, when she was on Lou Santiago's show, and she was talking about the stuff she does. In fact, what was it last year? She was talking about, the stuff she does where people can sign up and come learn to change their oil or whatnot when she's back in town and doing a regular thing. And when she was on the show, they had talked about emailing the show if you wanted to try to get in contact with her. And I thought about it, and I never went through it. That I kind of wished I did, because I was thinking about, since I coach girls soccer, and I'm only about an hour and a half away, of seeing if I could set it up for her to come down to the school and talk to the girls. But at the time, I got distracted and I never reached out. I mean, I'm sure I could still email Lou and John's email and let them know what I'm looking for and where I'm at.
I think because they not canceled. Oh yeah, they canceled All Girls Garage, but I think it's on.
They canceled it.
Yeah, they canceled it, and now I think
they film it right down in Tampa, not too far away from me.
Yeah, they it's on Gears TV now or whatever.
Yeah,
I
think I've had 3 vehicles on those shows.
Oh yeah.
I had my HHR on Earl Girl's Garage, Cyclone on what was the one with Lou? Carfix. Typhoon, my fake Typhoon on Carfix.
Oh, Carfix.
Yeah. Oh, and then then 4. Then I had my G8 on Two Guys Garage. That's just some history, and pretty much everything that. Never mind.
I'll come with
There was
it.
there was some issues like on the G8. They put headers on it, and I get it home. I'm like, "What's that noise? I hear a ticking noise." So I look around. I'm like, "There's no bolt there."
They left out the hard bolts.
Well, no, the head of the bolt was gone.
Oh,
the bolt was still in. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I took the header off, and then luckily I was able just to unscrew the rest of the bolt that was stuck in there. I was like,
that is
"Thank God."
lucky.
And
Yeah.
I just put the other bolt in. I'm like, "All right." And that was on that car. That was about it. Oh, they did they lower it? I think they lowered it too much.
Which show is that on? The G8.
That was on Two Guys Garage. The
Two
G8.
Guys.
And then I had my Cyclone on Carfix, and that was a whole. They did a bunch of stuff, but on the cladding on the sides, they must have leaned up against it and broke it. I get back and I go, "Hey, this wasn't broke before." They're like, "Oh," and they gave me some money. But I got work done for no price, so
Yep.
I can't complain.
So with stuff like that, do you go to their website or whatnot to put in to have them do something with your car, or is it just somebody? Or
that's how I did it originally. I said, I'm in Tampa. There's a list of my cars. You can, if you're interested in any of them. I think they had it one time. The same on their website. If you want to get your car worked on by us, submit your car or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
I remember way back when Pimp My Ride was on. My wife's coworkers were trying to talk her into, because once in a while she would take the Porsche to work, and they were trying to talk her into submitting, and she told me, and I said, "Don't you dare submit that Porsche to Pimp My Ride. I do not want them touching that.
You'll end up getting a fish tank in the back."
Yep.
Yeah, I do not want all that extra crap. And I'm like, I've yet to see them work on a motor. I don't, paint my car, wrap my car. I don't need all that other garbage.
You wrap it all right.
Yeah. Now, I watched it. We would watch, and that's kind of, I guess, where it came up, because we'd watch it, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. That's, whatever." But I don't want it on my car, and definitely not the Porsche.
Yeah. Yeah, those cars were not. They didn't turn out well afterward. Did you see Tavares's channel? He got the old one of the Pimp My Ride Caravan. It's like a pink purple Caravan.
I think I saw that one.
And Tavares started putting it back together, and like they didn't touch the engine. It's a total stock. It's like thing runs like crap. It's like
oil all over the place, stuff like that. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those videos. I think I saw the Tavares one.
Yeah,
but with TV magic, it looked great. Don't worry.
Right, that's right.
I mean, I've watched like what they do on Garage Squad, and I think that's cool. But again, not for me, not my car. I'll do my own stuff. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind the help, but and I think out of all those shows like that, when they go on Garage Squad, when they would go and get the people to work on the car, we'll work on your car, but you're going to help. I thought that was cool. You get, sometimes there'd be the owner's son would be involved in helping out. I think that was great. But I also heard what's his name? Joe
Zolper.
Zolper. Yeah, I watched his interview from Lou's show,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hearing how some of these people are just unappreciative.
Oh, I know. I couldn't believe that.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, the guy that was trying to blow up his motor,
Yeah, just
revving it up, and then the guy that caught him at the one show, and there it is, like a year or two later, and he's bitching that they didn't put on the inner door panels or whatever it was, something stupid like that. It's like, seriously, you guys, you let the car sit for how long, and we came and helped you, and you're unappreciative, and you can't pop in a door card or whatever it was that they didn't pop in, and it's a year later, and you couldn't get off your butt to do that much, and you're bitching at us.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's the problem with everybody with that.
Yeah,
I always look.
I even complained. I got free stuff from my car.
I always look past the camera and I noticed, like, even on Dan Short show on Phantom Works, they did a whole makeover on this car, and they painted it and did a whole bunch of stuff, and then they'll show you the interior shot, and you can see the steering column has chips on it, or the dashboard has. So obviously they didn't touch that because that probably wasn't part of their original contract that he made with the client, and that the guy's going to be bad mouthing. I'm like, they couldn't even touch this up, or they couldn't even paint this. But hey, dude, that wasn't in the, you got to look at what you agreed to, and if that wasn't, part of it, at the time it sounded okay. Say, oh, don't worry, I'll do that later. It's no big deal. But now when the rest of the car is done, now that kind of stands out because it's not done, and I'm sure they got a lot of negative feedback because of that too.
Well,
all right, who's eating what?
Who's eating what?
Yeah, what's it going to be?
We are out of everything.
Wow.
Yeah. I got.
I got 54 eggs sitting here in the refrigerator.
Really? 54.
54. Did you get chickens?
318 packs.
Yeah.
Well, we found they finally got a good deal on them, so my wife keeps buying them. So she made a quiche the other day, and I guess I'm having eggs for breakfast again.
I just go outside and get the eggs from the chickens.
That's good. We don't have chickens here.
We got 9, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Wow. So, Brian, what are you going to do, man? No food?
4 roosters. 4 roosters.
I know.
What are you down to, like white bread and oatmeal, or what?
It might have to be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Well, that's okay. Make it peanut butter and jelly and cream cheese sandwich.
I don't have any cream cheese.
Oh,
when I say I'm out. I am out.
Guess so.
After my little incident earlier, a couple months ago, when I got burned. I know we're still alive, but Mako kind of broke it off in me. So,
yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Well, that was when I got burned by that customer, but Mako kind of broke it off in me, and it's a little tight on the funds.
Yeah.
So, but there's one thing one thing I always say. You're not going to get rid of me. And
okay.
You'll definitely need me before I need you. So
all right.
I just have to watch my P's and Q's.
Yeah.
For a little bit, but it'll get back. I mean, like I said.
Yeah.
We had speaking of watching your P's and Q's, we had a hard lockdown on Monday.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate with everything going on.
I saw something on the news about that. Yeah,
it made the news Arizona.
It made the news out here because I was gonna get back to you on that, and I never did. But yeah, it was on the news here, and I don't remember the details.
Well, off air, I'll text you the school, and maybe it was us.
I don't remember. You see, and I don't remember the details. And at the time, I mean, Arizona is a big state. It could have been, 1,000 miles away from you. But I was gonna send you. That's right. I saw it on the news. I didn't read it, so I couldn't. There was nothing I could send.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it just we had a game that day too, and we were actually looking for some stuff, and I didn't have my radio on me. I had just gotten to the school, and a couple of teachers ran out and said hard lockdown, and we started grabbing kids and running. Got in the locker room, and we secure. I mean, whoever it was disappeared. They searched the neighborhood, and of course, before they let us open up, and the kids, regardless, were secure. And I can't go into too much detail, but what I will say is I grabbed a bat, and my thing is I get real worked up when it comes to protecting children and making sure they're safe. And
so that's got to be true if you're ready to bring a bat to a gunfight.
I'll bring my teeth.
Yeah. Hey.
I mean, I'll bring whatever it takes.
I hear you.
But I mean, it ended up, like I said, everything ended up okay. Unfortunately, when we opened up and started going back to normal, one of the female students, it just, the reality hit her, and she broke down. And her coaches were really good. They were talking to her and making sure she was okay. And for me, I had the adrenaline dump, and with the heightened awareness and everything, that I was my focus was thrown off for the game. Yeah. And which, so be it. I mean, what's more important? The game's not that important.
Sure.
But it made for a different day. It made for a stressful day.
Yeah.
But,
No, definitely. In the beginning, when all this craziness started happening, like a Columbine and stuff, and then New York is always on the radar with stuff like that, and they were pointing fingers at cities and towns, and and the government, and now it's just everywhere. There's like it's just everywhere. And I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe people feel more empowered, emboldened. I mean, it's going on here, like in Brooklyn and on the subways. People are just like randomly just assaulting women, and then they're still going after Asians and all. Which it's like, why? Like, dude, just like, what? Stop!
Yeah, that's crazy.
Stop! Right. So I don't know. I don't know what happens to society at large. Maybe they just feel they can get away with it, and a lot of cities, don't prosecute. So maybe that's part of it. But now you've seen it all over the country. So
I think a bigger part of it across, just the fact that across the country, you can't just point at one set of politics because it's across the country. I think that the issue is morality. We have a lost sense of morality that when this stuff didn't happen, the morals and the moral values were different. The do unto others as you want done unto you. All the different it's just morality as a basis, as a accountability and all that.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. But in some of the cities, you gotta believe that people know they're not going to be prosecuted. They may, well, depending on I mean, obviously, if you're doing a mass shooting, but there's revolving door, arrests with no bail or low bail, and these guys are out on the street a couple hours time, and they do. I mean, I hear about recidivists, the recidivists all the time. Guys have rap sheets like you wouldn't imagine because the judges kept letting them out.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and I agree that. So
what's going to stop them? I mean, it's like they say, locks keep the honest people honest, but it's the same thing. If you're that mind and you want to do, if you're going to do bad and hurt people, you're going to find a way. Now they're just making it easier for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a set of rules.
No, they don't.
So
They
I
don't.
mean, that's what irritates me or gets me all worked up. They make, like you said, locks keep honest people honest, and these rules, we go through all the rules and regulations, and they still want to take stuff away from me. The guy that's the bad guy isn't following any rules.
Nope.
No, not at all.
Just whatever he wants.
And again, it goes way back to any subject that you want to talk about. It's how the media portrays it, and they pick a subject or they pick the idea and they beat that in, and people, yeah, that's a good idea. And you're looking at them like, what? How's that a good idea? Other than, it's kind of like it pisses me off when I had to go put gas in my lawnmower gas can.
Yeah.
Oh, the stupid gas
they had
cans.
that
Oh, right.
safe, this whole damn thing that
I have old ones, so mine.
Yeah. Well, I still have old metal ones too. And, but again, they do all this to make it better. And it's
Right.
just nothing but,
Pain in the neck.
They
Yeah.
No
one
more
of the
gas
things-
anyway.
It's always a shock
Yeah,
when you
that's right.
see it. Like, I know they were talking about this here for a year or so. There was a big thing over the winter where they found a bunch of guys, in the city in Brooklyn, and they were they had fake, temporary plates, the paper plates, but they were faking them, and they were just driving around with impunity, going through red light cameras, going through speed zone cameras, and now they can't be traced back because it's a phony plate. So the city. I'm not in the city. I'm out of it, but I see the news. And the city said, "Hey, we got to crack down on this because these guys, so they put out a full court press. So now they're going to do these speed cameras in construction zones, which is only going to lead to speed cameras permanently
Everywhere else, yeah.
And I said, these guys with the fake plates, they don't give a shit. They're going to be out there blasting through it, and they're not getting caught.
They don't care. Yep.
I had to go to New Jersey last week, and I had to go through, across Bronx Expressway and over the GW Bridge. And there was 3 different guys came up around me in the car it was either on a scooter or a small motorcycle. And I saw the other thing they've been talking about. I mean, the guys were wearing helmets and all, but you know what? No license plate, 0. There was the frame bracket with nothing on it. I'm like, damn, these guys are just blatantly running, just running amok, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah, this guy's here running around on quads and dirt bikes, just riding
do
down the
that too.
street, doing
Yep.
wheelies and like oncoming traffic. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing?
I'm like, well, but when you see it, it really smacks you in the face. You're like, damn, these are the guys they're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we saw that, probably about a week or 2 ago. We were coming home from the store, and down the street there was 2 guys on dirt bikes and 1 guy on quads, and they were filming. And and here you can get your dirt bike or quad legally plated to drive on the road legally.
Yeah,
these guys were not.
No,
and they're going down the road, and it's the middle of the afternoon. It's like a Sunday or something like that. And my wife was worried. She was like, hold back, because she was worried this guy's he's gonna lose it, and we're gonna be the ones running him over.
Yeah.
And ultimately it was, we don't want to hurt somebody. It's not
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
We don't want damage to our cars. We don't want to hurt somebody. And it's like, and the worst part is where this happened. Go down the road about another mile, and you've got the wash, and you can burn up and down the wash messing around, no problem. But these guys, and I know what they were doing, that with their filming and stuff, they were going to put it on their channel, or whether
Right.
YouTube or whatever platform. But
TikTok
video, it's just the foolishness. And
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, I gotta
anyway,
go.
I got a full refrigerator, unlike Brian. So Brian, if you want to come over, we can eat all night long.
Or drive.
Right. I wish
We'll
I could
eat
stop
until you got to
by.
go to work,
I got
Yeah,
spaghetti.
because I don't have to go to
Man,
work.
I almost made spaghetti last night. I
we got
found a new seasoning,
Yeah.
and it's It's tequila and
Goomba gravy.
I don't know. It's tequila and something. And dude, it's really good.
We had
I
spaghetti squash tonight. That was really good.
spaghetti.
Oh, that's
squash.
good.
I like it.
I can go for all that.
You know what? You know, she made it just this time, just cut the squash and shredded it. But she makes some dish where you mix it with chopped meat and kind of probably like taco seasoning or whatever, and some veggies in there and all. And it really, and then you put it back in the half shell of the squash, and it's a meal, man. It really is a meal. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I had yesterday. I did chicken with this. I can't remember what it is. Tequila and something, and then I did pork chops tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if Brianna ever ate hers. If she did, I'll make a pork chop sandwich.
Oh yeah, pork chop sandwich is good.
All right, guys, let's go raid the fridges. So for Lewis Lee and Carl Anthony, a special guest tonight, me who almost couldn't get on, Motormouth Radio Ray. Of course, we got Medical Man Brian, we got Keith, and we got Coach Isaac. What do we say, Isaac, to the guys that I got to take the garbage out? So what am I going to say to those guys hanging out in the corner checking me out?
You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. Sundays, you can follow Ray on Motormouth Radio at noon, New York time.
Correct.
But whatever you do, don't follow us home.
No, don't do that. No.
You better take that. Fellas. I sent you a link, Ray. You can check out that woman driver on Instagram.
Hey, send me one.
Did you send it on Instagram?
Yeah, I sent it on Instagram.
I sent you something.
Okay, I see.
I saw what you sent me.
Read it, yeah.
Well, I haven't read. I haven't. Yeah, I saw it. I haven't opened it.
Was that on message?
Oh, you want to, Brian?
What? Oh, yeah. Okay, send it to everybody else, Key. I understand how you operate. Okay.
I can't say the right.
Hey, us big guys don't have any feelings. It's okay.
Right.
Is Ray on Facebook? Because I don't see him.
Motormouth.
No.
Facebook.
Oh,
Motormouth. Yeah. Ray goes under the cover of his wife.
That's true. But there is a Motormouth Radio, okay? Because I post on it.
Yeah, I'm probably on it.
Or you can send it on Instagram if you want, Keith, on real_Motormouth Radio.
All right. That's not,
on Instagram.
Something I found one time.
I bet.
About somebody, YouTube person.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not, but
there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. All right, fellas. I'm going to crank this thing down.
All right, guys.